Hello everybody, this is the iFan channel here, and this is actually the second video in a 3-video series. And in this video I'm actually going to download every single beta version of Windows. When I mean every single beta version, I do mean at least one beta version for every single major Windows release. That basically meant Windows 1.0, Windows 2.0, Windows 3.0, Windows 3.1, NT 3.1, 95, NT 4.0, 98, 2000 ME, XP, Vista 7, 8, 8.1, and 10, and 11. It does not mean every single beta build, because that will be a very long video, basically spanning over several days or even several different weeks. So basically, these are some of the major beta builds, and I actually did hand choose each beta to make sure they're quite compatible with this video. So basically you could actually see the timestamps below to see the build of each version, but I'm not going to include smaller versions like Windows NT 3.5, 3.51 or such. Basically these are just major versions of Windows. Unfortunately, I could not really find a beta IMG or ISO for Windows 2.0. It has been lost forever, and I'm not really sure if I could download a beta for Windows 11, because Windows 11 was basically announced around 4 months before Windows 11 was released to the public, like 3 years ago. So I'm not sure if I could even download the latest beta for Windows 11 before Windows 11 was released, but why not? Let's start the video. First off, with Windows 1.0. Okay guys, here is the first OS I'm going to download, which is actually Windows 1.0 Developer Release 5, which is the very earliest version of Windows to ever be known. It was actually released in 1984, about a year before Windows 1.0 was released. And instead of downloading MS-DOS 5, why not? Instead, I'm actually going to download MS-DOS 3. I don't know what happens, but I'm actually going to connect the floppy drive. Oh geez, it cannot even connect the floppy drive. So why not? I'm actually going to figure out. And of course, I'm not really familiar with downloading Windows 1.0 beta, just like the fact I actually did struggle installing a mouse in Windows 1.0. So basically just put in this date. This is actually the date I got. So over here it is. I'm going to enter, maybe, I don't know. And guess what? This is actually MS-DOS 3.3. Yes, really old. I'm actually going to try to download Windows 1.0 here. Okay guys, it did take a while, and there are actually multiple failed attempts. I actually did try MS-DOS 3 and PC-DOS 3 as well as MS-DOS 2, 2.1, but everything failed. So why not? I actually did download a Windows 1.00 Developer Release 5 file from this blog, blog.naver.com, which is actually a Korean-based vlog. And why not? I'm actually going to download it again. So create a new virtual machine now. I'm actually going to install the virtual machine later. MS-DOS. Don't think of it as Dr. 5. It is actually developer release. Put in 16 megs of RAM, because for some reason, according to that video, they don't accept anything more than 16 megs of RAM. And here it is. I'm actually going to order it and just add in a new MS-DOS floppy disk. This is actually going to be MS-DOS 2.11 based on Toshiba. DOS disk, and just power on the virtual machine. As you can see, this is what the MS-DOS looks like on the Toshiba personal computer. I'm actually going to change the date to this. And just follow me for a bit. I'm still quite confused, even though I tried downloading this several times over. Type in fdisk first and then create a new partition. Select yes, and just strike any key. And format C/S. Then type in copy star.star basically an asterisk and C, and then it will copy all the files into the C drive, and then CT mouse, basically to install this mouse for Windows 1.0, because for some reason the mouse does not really work. I did try several times, but finally I did find this link, and then add in the Windows 1.0 disk of here. So Windows 1.0, and then copy install bat. And then after going to C drive, and then select install. To select yes. Select yes. I know it will take a while, but press any key when ready and it will copy files. Insert this too. And then insert this 3. And press any key when ready. And instead of typing mswin, let's type this: drivers EGAHIBW. And kernel. And voila, this is actually Windows 1.0 developer release 5. Yes, I'm not joking. I'm actually going to open up exclusive modes. It's absolutely crazy to actually use this, but here it is. Yes, Windows 1.0. Unfortunately, there's no color in this variant, but this is the very first known build of Windows 1.0. Basically, developer release 4 has not been leaked to the public yet, unfortunately, so we may never be able to download it until like maybe it was posted online. But here it is, developer release 5, a really old version of Windows. Basically predates Windows 1.0 by about a year. It is absolutely crazy to use this. And as you can see, there are several different apps, mouse.exe. In fact, you do have several other apps, though it is exceptionally crazy to still see this OS still work as an entity. Basically, you even have the calculator app, so let's multiply 24 times 24. It should equal 576 still. I know it's a bit harder to use the, yeah. Basically, it's not so familiar with the Windows 1.0. But here you go. Basically, I'm actually going to try to delete. Actually, end session. Yep. Okay. Ironically, there is this error. I just don't know how. In fact, this is the very first time I even got to run this DR5. But finally, yes. At least I ran the oldest version of Windows. MS-DOS was actually released 3 years before this build. In fact. And now I'm actually going to start downloading Windows 3.0 build 33. Which was actually released in 1989. The year before Windows 3.0 was released in 1990. Unfortunately, there is actually no beta for Windows 2.0. Even though there is, I actually could not find one. So now I'm actually going to add in a floppy disk. So basically, I think MS-DOS 5. And then I'm actually going to restart again. Oh, Jesus. Connect. I'm actually going to connect and power on. Okay, it's restarted already. This too. Now on older PCs, this would of course take really long to download, but this is actually VMware, so it basically uses my host PC's processor, which is basically Intel Core i5 11th gen, so it's quite fast, and therefore it only takes like about a minute to download, which is absolutely insane. Because basically installing Windows does take a while, like 10 to 20 minutes in today's standards still, but why not? I'm actually going to remove them. And why not? I'm actually going to add in the Windows 3.0 ISO. Actually, IMG. Sorry. I'm not sure if it actually works or not. I've not really tried out yet. But why not? Like Shift F9. Oh, she's set up. I'm actually going to pause this video for a bit to figure out. Ironically, there are not many videos on how to download Windows 3.0 beta, but I actually found this YouTuber called FlopoDOS. If you could actually search installing Windows 3.0 build 33, and then you could actually find FlopoDOS's channel. He actually did send me a link, so I'm actually going to use it now. I actually did add MS-DOS 3.3. For some reason, I just don't know how it does not work. Oh. Basically, this is DOS 3.3. I'm actually going to restart the guest. And now, first off, you gotta add this, which is actually the disk 1. And then make directory B33 and copy. Let me figure out for a bit. Oh geez, my bad. I had to go on the C drive first, but the C drive does not exist yet. First off, you do have to type in fdisk, which meant to create a DOS partition, a primary DOS partition, yes, and it will now be restarted. And then format C. Afterwards, go into your floppy drive, and since we did create a C drive, I'm actually going to add in the disk 1, and here is where we actually make a new directory. Yes, I think that is correct. And afterwards, you have to insert in disk 2. I'm not sure, but I'm actually going to try this command. Oh, it actually does work there. And add in this 3. And this 4. Basically, I know this is my very first time installing, so I'm still quite stuck. And afterwards is this 5. And go into the C drive and then CD B33 and then win. Wow! It finally worked! This kind of looks similar to Windows 2.0, but it is actually based on 3.0. So not many of the things do work, but as you can see, I'm actually just going to scroll around to see what things are like there. But it's quite cool to actually see this build of Windows 3.0. And if you were to actually find out about, as you can see, this is actually version 2.1 MS-DOS Executive for some reason. So here you go. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm just not really familiar with downloading, so I could not really help you much. But here it is, the notepad.exe. Kind of starts to look similar to Windows 3.0 a bit there. I'm actually going to shut down the guest and actually start with Windows 3.1, which I'm not even sure if I could install, but I do have MS-DOS 6.22, which is the same version of MS-DOS I actually used to install Windows 3.1, the real edition. Okay guys, let's remove all the floppy drives. It is quite cumbersome with VMware because there are actually several like tabs, and over here MS-DOS 6.22 is actually installed, and I'm actually going to figure out how to install Windows 3.1 beta build 26 here. I know it's extremely cumbersome there. Unfortunately, you have to restart. But basically, VMware's like settings is like extremely cumbersome. Okay, the A drive. Setup, yes. It does work. So this setup kind of looks similar to Windows 3.0 rather than 3.1. A bit there. But basically, after the mess that is Windows 3.0 and Windows 1.30, it is now much easier to download Windows 3.1. Unfortunately, Windows 2.0 beta is kind of lost to history now. Basically, many of these ISOs I did find on VMware PC. Just so you can know. Okay, and here it is, Windows 3.1, very much the beta build. It is registered to Rob Dehan for some reason from IBM. I don't know who it is, but does include reverse-C, which is actually removed in Windows 3.1, as Windows 3.1 does not have reverse-C. But as you can see, this is actually beta. Solitaire and stuff. And you do have accessories as well. So it does kind of resemble 3.1 a bit there. But otherwise not much. And why not, I'm actually going to shut down and show you guys what the screen looks like. And here it is. This is what distinguishes 3.0 from 3.1. In 3.1, it is only C:\win, whilst in 3.0, it is actually C:\Windows/win there. And as you can see, the boot screen does look kind of like 3.0. So why not, I'm actually gonna shut down and actually start NT 3.1, which I could easily get lost because I've not really downloaded this yet, and unfortunately for some reason the ISO does not really work, and this is actually the only ISO I could find, NT PDK, and the install is kind of confusing as well, so I'm actually going to pause for a bit. Ironically, despite the fact Windows NT 3.1 is actually an NT based OS, I did have to download the same version of MS-DOS as I did with Windows 3.1 beta as well as 3.1, which is MS-DOS 6.22. Kind of ironic, but it's a fun fact. Now I'm actually going to try to put in the A drive, and I set up that. I'm not sure if it actually works or not, but I'll figure out. Okay guys, I actually figured out what I got wrong. In fact, I'm actually going to try to install the MS-DOS CD-ROM driver, which does say ISO, but it is actually image. So why not, I'm actually going to load this and see if it actually works. So floppy drive, I'm actually going to go to downloads this time, because that's where the CD-ROM is actually located. Restart my machine. Connect the floppy drive once again. And this is where we could actually see how NT 3.1 beta actually works. Yes, it actually did work. I'm actually going to disconnect the floppy drive now and actually restart. Drive D, setup. Only i386 is actually supported. So I'm actually going to figure out what to do next. In fact, instead of typing just setup, actually type this. i386 setup and install, and voila, this is how you actually install Windows NT 3.1. and now actually restart the device. NT, select N. I'm not sure how long this loads, but it will take a while. Unfortunately, there are not many videos showing you guys how to install NT 3.1, so why not, I'm actually going to delete the virtual machine and actually going to skip to 95. Okay guys, as you guys know, yesterday I did fail to install Windows NT 3.1 build 196. So why not, I'm actually going to try again on PCem, which is actually a PC emulator. I'm actually going to use these specs here. So actually the 486 clone. It should be this. 16 megs of RAM, of course, because at the time there's less RAM, and don't synchronize time to clock because we actually do have to change the time. And I'm actually going to look for a VGA setting here, and then basically after this to Sound Blaster 1.5 and 3.5, and of course this is what the CD speed will be. And now I'm actually going to add a hard drive. I'm actually going to choose the top size and dynamic size VHD, and I'm going to name it NT196. Yeah, why not? And let's see if it actually works or not. Basically the mouse there, just leave it as is. And okay, just start the virtual machine now. Go to standard CMOS and let's change the date. And this is what my new date is, and basically modify the cylinders as well. As well as the floppy drive. And after this, actually choose this setting here. As well as for this, and then go to escape, and then advanced CMOS settings there. We're actually going to load the A drive first. So select page down and therefore save and exit. Now actually connect the A drive DOS 6.22 and connect the CD-ROM as well, which is the 1.96. Actually 196, sorry. PDK here. And once it's ready, then just select F disk. It's gonna take a while for sure, but this does have CD-ROM support. Unlike the previous DOS I've used. F disk. And create a DOS partition, yes. Primary DOS partition, and it would restart. But keep the DOS disk inside. As you can see, it does recognize the CPU. It is a really slow CPU. And then afterwards, actually format C. I know this would definitely be slower than VMware, but it's for sure going to be more reliable with these type of operating systems. Oh, I forgot to select the volume there. And then just go to setup i386 MS2 and just press any key to continue. I'm gonna see you guys later because it's gonna take some time. But as you can see, this is how NT Beta actually installs, which is quite fascinating. Unlike the other NT where there's actually GUI I showed you guys last week. And I think after this it would probably work. Okay guys, after several minutes, Windows NT 3.1 did finish installing, but I'm not sure if it actually works. But I'm actually going to show you guys the directory. As you can see, NT is actually installed. I'm actually going to put Control Alt Delete and then eject the drive A. How's this still on MS-DOS? What the hell? But I'm actually going to restart NT. Why not? N. And yeah, I do think it actually will work. As you can see, it does work. It's just crazy there. And here's the program manager. It looks quite different from the NT 3.1 I have installed like last week. It is so impressive to actually see NT 3.1 calendar and stuff. Yeah, it looks very different. There's even a control panel here, which you could actually select the sound and color and stuff. Quite impressive, but unfortunately NT did crash. I just don't know how. I'm actually gonna shut down. This is quite a proud moment, and I'm gonna download 95 now. This is one of the earlier builds of Windows 95, being released in 1993. So basically this is actually Windows Chicago here. I'm actually going to figure out how to install this software. So basically this is the build. I might have to download DOS, who knows, as well as the CD driver. So basically I will power off and actually install MS-DOS 6.22. To believe after this it would actually work. Basically Windows 95 and stuff do require boot disk at the minimum, or MS-DOS. So when I'm actually going to install MS-DOS here. And then add in this CD-ROM driver. And then I think by this point I could actually disconnect the floppy and only go with CD, and I'm going to restart now. I know it does take a while because installing these is quite complicated, and this is my very first time installing as well. So basically I'm actually going to install Windows 3.1 first. Basically after installing Windows 3.1, in fact I actually installed 3.11 for workgroups, which I did not show in the previous video, as I do believe Windows 3.11 for workgroups is quite similar to Windows 3.1 in many ways, even though there are actually several extra features such as networking support and stuff. But why not? I'm actually going to install Windows 95, basically the very first build, 58S. I'm actually going to try to find the setup.exe. I'm not sure where it is. But as you can see, this is what all the files looks like. Unfortunately, I do have to pause to actually figure out. Okay, after being able to find a setup.exe, when I'm actually going to load, and this is Windows Chicago here. Yes, Windows Chicago. Unfortunately, I could not actually continue. Basically, just skip this and just continue and reboot the system here. And here it is, Windows Chicago. Yes, named after the largest city in Illinois. However, the capital of Illinois is actually Springfield. I'm actually going to wait a bit for this, if it actually works or not. Unfortunately, I did watch Billy O'Reilly's video, and he did explain this build does not actually work on VMware VirtualBox. So unfortunately, I do have to download PCem here. Basically, this is where I could actually download some of the builds I actually could not download, and I'll show you guys later. Now after a very long time I finally got to install Windows Chicago over here. And I did download 86box because I did try PCem and it is quite complicated, so why not? I tried 86box. It did take a while to actually install, and it did require several different files, including the manager, as well as the 86box itself, and also the ROMs and stuff. So it did take a while, and I actually did download several different ISOs, including Windows 3.1. After 3.11 actually did fail, because I forgot to install the CD driver beforehand, and therefore here it is. This is actually Windows Chicago here, and as you can see, this is Dr. Watson, something you would never see in Windows 95, and this is what the start menu looks like. As you can see, very, very primitive. It only includes very few programs, but here it is. To actually close, you actually go here, instead of having the X just like in modern Windows. But this is an inspiration for more modern OSes. Over here is the file cabinets. Basically this will become like the computer, and instead of having A, B, C, D in like a small toolbar, instead it is more like this, kind of like Windows 95. And let's close, and here's the network. Unfortunately there's no network, and the sound driver did not really work. And here are some of the programs. Basically it does open a separate window, kind of like in Windows 3.1, but as you can see, you do have media player as well as Notepad, Paintbrush, which is essentially MS Paint, the Write app, which is basically replaced by WordPad. And you do have some games as well, such as Minesweeper and Hearts is the Free Cell, Solitaire. So you do have a whole bunch of apps, but this is actually a beta of Windows 95. And Windows 95 would represent a radical change in Windows, so why not? I'm actually going to shut down. I'm going to show you guys all the specs I actually used to actually run this OS. Okay guys, so basically just configure, just set your machine type to socket 7, and then the machine to epochs P55VA, Intel Pentium MMX, and just set these frequencies and time synchronization to disabled, and of course select this as your video card. And for input devices, PS2 mouse is okay. For sound card, I don't think Sound Blaster actually works, but it did put Sound Blaster 1.5, and we're not going to use the network anyways. I don't think there's really any internet in this beta. This actually predates the internet, even though the internet exists as early as the early 90s. PCI, and just add a hard drive. As you can see, basically just set it to about 1 gig of RAM, which is what I set it to. And of course, set it to 3.5 inch and 80 API, and just press OK. And why not? I'm actually going to move to another build of Windows 95. This build, yes. But ironically, I do have to install MS-DOS as well as, you guessed it, the CD-ROM. So basically, I'm going to add a floppy drive now. Of course, MS-DOS 6.22. You don't need to watch it. I'm actually going to skip this part because it's quite redundant. But first off, I do have to remind you guys that you do have to set your date back a bit. And I'll show you how though, yeah. Basically press delete to enter setup, and standard CMOS setup, and then set the date to this. I'm actually going to exit VBox now. And now select the A drive, yes. Basically just add a new floppy disk, browse, and then CD-ROM. This is to install the CD-ROM here. And after finishing this, insert the Windows 3.11 because we'll need it to actually install Windows 95 build 122, which is a much more modern version of 95. And I'll show you guys some of the changes made from the original build, which I just showed you guys. And this, I do believe, is actually beta 1. It will take a while there. I just set the product number to whatever, like 1111, because I think it actually does work. And change it to this 3 here. This 4. This 5. This 6. Now, as you can see, installing these older versions of VMware is much faster than on like emulators like PCem or 86box. That's basically because VMware does utilize the modern processor, basically the host computer's processor, rather than the processor like the 386 or some old processor. So it's of course much faster. I'm actually going to continue. Okay, and then skip, and of course return to MS-DOS. And over here, I'm actually going to type in win, and let's add the ISO. So I do have the ISO, and unfortunately, there's no D drive. So let me retry again. After actually installing 3.1 rather than 3.11, I finally got the D drive to actually work. Now let's find out setup.exe. And over here is a much different UI in terms of the setup. I just chose whatever I wanted. Yeah, I don't think it really matters, and I have not tried yet. But this is Windows Chicago, which would later become Windows 95. And I'm not sure when the build was actually released, but I do believe this build was released around 1994. So basically the previous build, the pre-beta, was actually released in 1993. And why not, I'm actually going to begin setup. I don't even know. I'm actually going to pause this for a bit. Okay guys, this is the information I wanted you guys to put in. Hit yes, and don't create a startup disk. Just install files over here. Setup is now complete. I might remove the ISO, who knows, but if it's a viable option. And Chicago is finally set up. And here it is. Yep, Windows Chicago, the same boot up screen as the previous variant. Ironically, I'll figure out why it does not work in a sec. Ironically, I actually ejected the CD by accident. So that's why it did fail to load and it actually crashed. So I'm actually going to select yes. Start failsafe boot, because if you select no, then it would actually crash. And I'm actually going to put on Windows, and I think maybe just cancel this. And as you can see, this is actually Windows Chicago. Basically, I don't need an emulator. I did try to do an emulator, but it actually wasted time anyways. So here it is. Luckily, this build does work with the VMware. I'm actually going to try to do full screen at this point. And here you go. Yeah, basically you do have the start button, yeah, which looks more like the Windows 95 start button and my computer rather than the file manager, something like that. And as you can see, it does have an A drive and a C drive. And this is actually Chicago Beta release notes. And over here you can find the programs and stuff. This is a very primitive start menu. And over here is media player, WordPad and stuff. Yes, WordPad. Games and stuff. Basically this is what Windows 95 looks like. And if you were to upgrade to the build 216, you would find out a more modern UI. I bet you guys, yeah. But over here is what the intro to Windows 95 actually looks like. Control panel. So this now looks a lot more like Windows 95 than this like hybrid between 95 and 3.1 and with this Dr. Watson thing. So right now I'm actually going to shut down. And actually going to download the build 216. So over here I'm also going to put in MS-DOS 6. So I'm actually going to download it and see you guys later. Okay guys, it is now the next day and I'm going to download Windows 95 build 216. Now I did install Windows 3.1 as well as MS-DOS 6.22 to actually install this. And here it is, version 3.1. And why not, let's go to the file manager. And go all the way to setup here. You're attempting to set up 3.1. Sorry, I'm actually going to pause and add the 95 disk. I forgot something. Okay guys, this is actually more correct. I'm actually going to go to the setup and this starts to look more like the Windows 95 setup, as you can see. Windows on Windows, yeah. I know it is actually somebody's YouTube channel. I'm actually going to set this beta site ID and password. So basically you can actually go on Beta Wiki and actually find out the beta site ID as well as the password. So here I go. And hit next. And I'm just going to install Windows 95. Basically, you could look at all of these on the internet, just like I said, but before, because of licensing reasons, I do not want to show you guys the product key, as I'm scared I might get like sued by the DMCA or get my video taken down. So basically, I was on the safe side, but here, basically all the information is on Beta Wiki, so it's kind of okay. And remove all this from the floppy drive. No floppy, so why not I select OK. Select any key. Now as you can see, it did say Windows actually did expire. So I do have to set the date. So basically just restart. I'm going to restart and go into BIOS. But in fact, VMware is quite fast in terms of its boot screen, so I don't really have enough time. So why not actually pause the video. Okay guys, in BIOS actually set to this date. And then F10, exit. And basically I don't know what to say here. It says it has expired. I'm actually going to try to figure out. Okay guys, I did have to reinstall the virtual machine altogether. And I'm actually going to try if it actually works. It actually does work now, yes. As you can see, oh geez, Windows protection error again. I'm actually going to try to fix the 95 CPU. Okay guys, due to the protection error, I'm actually going to try using 86 box, yes. And I do think this actually works much better. But this error does persist. I just think I'll skip it. And as you can see, this works much better now. Yeah. Unfortunately, VMware is not that kind with Windows 95 or 98, but with every other operating system, VMware does work quite fine. For some reason, there's like the protection error issue as well as the shell issue. But I'm actually gonna set it to maybe New York time. Why not? And here it is, beta. Windows 95 Beta 2. Basically looks quite similar to the other Windows 95 that I tried. Except the Windows 95 I tried was actually OSes 2, which is essentially kind of like a service pack. So basically a lot of things are actually similar with the regular 95, including the computer app. Unfortunately, there's no Internet Explorer on this. This actually predates Internet Explorer, but as you can see, Windows 95 does look like a very modern version, especially since Beta 2. And why not, I'm actually going to shut down and actually install Windows NT 4.0. Yeah, as you can see, it does look kind of like Windows 95, except for the boot screen, yeah, which still kind of resembles the Chicago, sort of. I'm actually going to delete it and actually return to VMware. Now, after adding in the boot disk as well as the ISO, why not I'd actually start Windows NT build 1141, which was actually released in 1995, basically the same year as Windows 95, and they do require me to add in setup disk 2. And there's actually this blue screen, but I think it might cool down a bit and I might be able to continue, but who knows. Now, due to the fact VMware did not really work well, therefore I used my trusty friend 86box. Yes, I basically used the same exact specs as the Windows 95 builds, so do scroll back in the video if you want to see all the specifications I used, and enter Express Setup there. Why not? I'm actually going to add this 3. Yeah, I just don't know why there is even a floppy disk, but I actually do use a floppy disk here, actually as a boot disk for some reason. And as you can see, it does load the device driver, so it will take a while. And it did find the CD-ROM. Yes, CD-ROM. I actually did add the CD-ROM, as you can see over here. And it's just gonna load the device driver for a bit. It's gonna take a while, and I'm gonna see you guys later. Okay guys, just select continue, and setup is unable to locate the hard drive partition prepared by the MS-DOS portion of the setup. So basically I'm actually going to redo this altogether. In fact, I actually did restart setting, and why not, I'm actually going to do custom setting there. Basically enter and insert this 3 here. I'm sorry if I said setting, it is actually setup. And it's now going to load the device drivers and stuff, and it did found the IDE CD-ROM based on NT installation. Basically there were some things wrong, and I have not really installed it yet, so I don't really have experience. So basically beware if I were to make any mistakes or anything, because this is my first time installing any of these though. And plus many of these betas have quite hilarious like installation procedures there. Now I might specify an additional device and just enter there. Actually cancel, just enter. I really don't know what to put in there. Might try to continue setup, but it is still unable, so I'm gonna figure out what to do next. Unfortunately, I could not really find a way to download build 1141 for Windows NT 4.0 So why not? I'm actually going to skip over to Windows Nashville, which is supposed to be Windows 96. Yeah, basically after Windows 95, but it actually failed to gain any fruition whatsoever. So I'm actually going to start building Windows Nashville build 999. I'm not joking, yeah, which is actually nearly build 1000. So I'm actually going to add the virtual machine and actually going to create my new driver. Yeah. Basically, I'm just doing the same as what I did with 95 there. I'm not really sure if there's actually a time bomb. I'm actually going to check for it there. I'm not going to include sound card anyways because I don't think it would actually work. Okay, and basically for floppy drive, just select, I believe this, which should be okay, and AT-API, and then I'm actually going to try to put in Windows Nashville, but I'm not sure if it's going to actually work, because many of these older Windows are quite cumbersome in terms of the installation, therefore it is quite difficult. This does include CD-ROM support, but I'm actually going to pause to see if there's actually a time bomb. Actually, there isn't any, so why not? I'm actually going to go down and actually going to select F1 to actually continue, which would actually start MS-DOS. And actually put in my Windows Nashville. I almost said Windows Neptune, which is actually meant to be an NT-based consumer OS, whilst Odyssey is actually the NT-based workstation OS, but actually the Neptune and Odyssey teams actually combined to actually create Windows Whistler, which would become Windows XP though. Oh jeez. Then why not? Let's do it the old-fashioned way. Let's just install 3.1. So basically, after installing MS-DOS 6.22, you can actually watch the previous video for more information on how to download MS-DOS, as it's quite straightforward. Actually also install the CD drive. Basically, you could also watch that early in the video, as I'll show you guys. And actually, I'm not going to insert a printer or anything. It does not really matter. I'm actually going to return to DOS. And this is actually Windows 3.1 here. I'm actually going to add in another CD. Yes. Windows Nashville, yeah. Many of you guys might have never even heard of Windows Nashville because it's not really that well promoted. But here it is, Windows 95, yeah. It's essentially the exact same as Windows 95, but it is slightly different, yeah. Because Windows 95, I believe, is actually build 950, but you actually see in a sec though that it's not Windows 95. Even though it looks very similar to Windows 95. With the same setup process though. I'm not going to install a startup disk. As you can see, basically the setup looks exactly the same as Windows 95. I'm not even joking. It is the exact same. I'm actually going to pause. And actually I'm not going to get a startup disk. And basically I'm actually going to show you guys what has changed between 95 and Nashville, and it is quite minor, in fact, extremely minor, and I'll show you guys. In fact, it still says Windows 95. It is essentially the exact same as Windows 95, but it is actually beta, and fortunately there is actually no time bomb. So hence I don't need to go to BIOS and actually change the time. And you could actually watch the previous video, but here I actually use 86box rather than VMware Workstation, due to the fact in VMware Workstation there's going to be the Windows protection error scheme. Remember, basically Windows 95 installation was kind of rocked due to the Windows protection error, so hence I actually use this emulator rather, which proves to be more stable for Windows 95, because Windows 95 really does not support processors which are faster than 2.1 gigahertz. And unfortunately VMware does not emulate an actual machine, it actually uses the processor from the host PC. And I'm actually going to finish the setup here, which would actually restart and start Windows 95. Basically here it is, starting Windows 95, getting ready to run Windows 95 for the first time. This essentially is going to be the repeat of the Windows 95 installation essentially, but without actually going through like F-disk and stuff, all the complications. Instead I actually downloaded MS-DOS 6.22 and installed Windows 3.1 to actually get Windows 95, which I do believe is a lot more simple than before when I was actually stuck. Basically at the time I did not find a way to install a CD driver, so hence I actually did this odd way of getting the boot disk and then going through F-disk and stuff, all the complications. But that method worked, and this method also works as well. I'm not going to select my inbox, definitely not setting up. It's kind of a waste of time, but here it is. Crazy to understand. And this definitely does take longer than like VMware and stuff, but VMware is quite unreliable for Windows 95 because of Windows protection error. But here you go, basically the Windows 95 screen, and I do believe this is 95, but if you go on properties it will show build 999, genuine Intel, and basically the only way to tell this is Nashville is actually MS-DOS prompt. As you can see, Windows Nashville 1995, it basically includes the internet and stuff, all the programs there. Quite similar to Windows 95 in many ways, with the old media player. Basically the really old media player, and this is actually the internet here. This, I believe this is actually Internet Explorer 1 or something. It is absolutely crazy to actually see this internet. I don't think it would actually work to this day, and many websites wouldn't work, but here's the control panel, basically the exact same as Windows 95. And shut down, yeah, essentially Windows 95, except for very, very subtle differences you may never even notice. So right now I'm actually going to download Windows Memphis, which is 98. Now that we actually finished installing Windows Nashville, why not let's download Windows Memphis build 1351, which is actually one of the first iterations of Windows 98. So over here I did have MS-DOS 6.22. Why not let's install MS-DOS 6.22 first, and of course we have to set the date to like an earlier year. Unfortunately, basically I'm actually going to set the date first though. So be sure to actually set to this date and then F10 and exit now. And here is MS-DOS here. I'm actually going to download MS-DOS. Yeah, the settings are actually correct. I'm actually going to see you guys soon after I install the CD driver. Okay guys, so once DOS is actually installed, actually go into the A drive and then setup.bat. This is actually how you actually install the CD driver. I'm actually going to restart. Basically I do know the floppy configuration is quite cumbersome in VMware, and basically once you restart, I'm actually going to show you guys what to do next. Go to D drive and then go into dir, which is directory, and you can see cd win9x, and of course setup. And here you go, Windows Memphis, yeah. Basically similar to the Windows 95 setup, I believe so. Basically Windows on Windows. I do know it's actually a YouTube channel. It is actually a Windows YouTube channel, basically covering basically every single Windows version, including the betas such as this beta. But right now I'm actually using it for the sake, because I'm kind of lazy choosing each username. I don't want more consistency. Oh, jeez. Basically, this will take a while for sure. But as you can see, Memphis does have quite a different theme from the regular 98, and it does say running Windows 95. There's actually Windows protection error, so why not? I'm actually going to reset this for a bit. Okay guys, after fixing the 95 CPU, unfortunately there's the protection error if your processor is above 2.1 gigahertz. I'm actually currently in the setup, which is very good. I don't think it really matters because this is actually beta software, but as you can see, it is actually Windows 95, and yeah, the computer did crash, so I'm not sure what to do next. Aha! I do at least have my trusty old friend 86box to the rescue. So why not you actually download 86box and then set the computer to these configurations: socket 7, dual voltage, epox P55VA, Intel Pentium MMX, this frequency and the memory as well, disable time synchronization, and ATI Maca GX, and enable Voodoo graphics, and standard PS2 mouse, and of course the network and the ports and stuff, storage controller, and then create a hard drive with about a gig of storage, and floppy drive. These are the settings I'm actually going to use here, and basically select OK. I'm actually going to restart. Delete to enter setup, standard CMOS setup, and of course this is actually the date, which is quite good. As you can see, it is a bit early though, but I could actually try to install Windows 98 beta, pre-beta actually, on this upgrade from Nashville. You can actually do the same specs, set the date to 12/13/96, and of course afterwards repeat the DOS installation as well as the Memphis installation. Basically, I do know there are problems with the VMware, but at least I do have Memphis here, and you could actually do setup. So I'm gonna see you guys soon. Now, as you guys all know, like Windows 95 and 98 both don't really work well on VMware, and as you can see, the system has been finally installed, and that is actually the Memphis logo. And let's see if it actually works or not. As you can see, Windows Memphis developer release. It is quite exciting to actually see if there are any differences between this and the regular 98 that we're all used to. It still says Windows 95, however, and of course it does look quite similar to Windows 95 in many ways. I don't want to actually connect, because they'll ask me for like a modem and stuff, and diskette there. But let me see what the about is there for the internet there. As you can see, this is the internet properties, and if you were to go up a page, this is what it looks like in full screen. It is quite amazing. it is essentially still Windows 95 in many ways. It's not so different, but if you were to go into the MS-DOS prompt, it would actually say Memphis here. And just go into settings. This was first released in 1996, even though it does say 1997. Basically the end of 1996 was when this was released. And here's the system here. It is quite amazing. I'm actually going to shut down. As you can see, there's Dr. Watson Diagnostic 2. We've not seen this in a long time, since like the first build of Chicago. And over here is a shutdown. Basically looks similar to 95. And of course, just exit. And I'm going to attempt to build, actually install 98 build 1511. See you guys then. So basically I'm going to add in a CD drive here. This is actually the pre-beta, and I'm now looking for beta 1, which would look a bit different. And of course, let me also add a floppy drive as well. I'm gonna see you guys soon, because downloading DOS 6.22 is quite redundant. I've downloaded it several times already. Now before I go, this is the date I recommend you set it to. After I finish installing MS-DOS as well as the CD drivers, why not? I'm actually going to go into the D drive and of course go into the directory to see what it is all about. And CD Memphis. And of course go into the directory one more time to actually see. And I do believe setup there. And as you can see, this looks more like the Windows 98 setup than the previous one. Basically looks identical except for the Memphis. I do accept the agreement here, and typical, and of course Windows there. I don't know what error I would actually encounter, but let's see first there. Win, why not? And don't even bother. Nobody uses floppy disk these days anymore. Oh, as you can see, I'm not sure what to do here. If I keep pressing OK, this is what will happen. So why not I skip the file there? Because it does say ALL, and I don't believe anybody uses ALL, but I'm scared there might be errors, so why not I'm actually gonna pause. It will take a while. Now they keep on pressuring me to add this. I just don't know what to say. I'm just gonna skip the file there and then maybe restart the machine and see if there are any errors really. And this is actually Memphis beta 1. Unfortunately, there's also the same Windows protection error despite the fact this is actually 98, so why not? I'm actually going to do something about it. As you can see, the fixed 95 CPU. I just don't know how this even persists in this build, which is absolutely crazy there. Restart the guest here. No. And of course it will install this. Just press any key to restart the computer, and of course just basically disable all of these, and of course restart again there. I think maybe normal mode, but I'm not really sure. Oh jeez. This is quite weird now, unfortunately, yeah. I know after a while, as you can see, I'm nearly finished, but I'm not sure where to go next. Maybe I'm actually going to use my trusty old friend 86 box and actually upgrade from the previous build, the pre-beta of Memphis, to this beta 1. Because that has proven to be a lot more reliable for these Windows 9X based OSs. For some reason, Windows 9X isn't so reliable on VMware. I do think because of the hardware virtualization and stuff, but there's actually no way to disable it, unlike in VirtualBox. So restart now. As you can see, this is actually Memphis developer release, and it'll take a while for sure. I don't really know how long, but who knows, it might even freeze. Yeah, basically I'm more than 10 minutes in, but as you can see, this operating system in VMware basically doesn't work. It just freezes. And over here is Microsoft Memphis on 86 bucks for sure. And I'm actually gonna finish setting up for a bit. Okay guys, now we're actually in the restart phase. So as you can see, this is a lot more stable than the previous VMware iteration. And this is actually Memphis Beta 1. Still with the Memphis logo. And yeah, it is. We're finally started. As you can see, it still has the internet here. And it looks slightly different from the 95. And I do believe this is actually Internet Explorer 3. As you can see, it is actually IE4 platform review, even though it has the old internet icon from IE1 or 2, I believe so. And it does say Memphis here. And here's some applications as well as accessories. The games, Internet Explorer suite and stuff. Settings, control panel though. And here's the computer and properties here. Build 1511. I'm actually going to shut down and continue with Beta 2. Build 1593 here. I'm actually going to set the ISO image to the Beta 2. And I'm going to see you guys later once you get MS-DOS 6.22 as well as the CD driver installed. But first off, this is actually the date I want you guys to set to be able to install this version 98. Okay guys, after I installed the CD-ROM drives as well as MS-DOS 6.22, let's go to the D drive and let's go to the directory. It does say Win98. So basically just go to CD Win98 and of course go to directory again and set up this time. Let's continue. And it no longer says Memphis here but says 98 rather. So do you think there's not going to be the protection error anymore? But rather some different error, who knows? Basically why I trust NT more on VMware, whilst for these guys you should actually use PCem emulators or 86 box rather. Oh Jesus. Okay guys, I basically did have to restart the computer and basically reset up again because I did some mistake. And after a while it would actually restart, and ironically it is actually Beta 3. So I actually did skip Beta 2 for some reason. Even though this is actually build 1593, which according to Beta Archive, actually Beta Wiki, it is actually considered Beta 2, 2.1 and Beta 3. Ironically, I just don't know what to say anyways. As you can see, you can actually see this and consult with this. It is actually Beta 2.1 over here. And luckily there's actually no protection error, but there might be the shell error. So of course I actually do know how to fix. Just actually restart, go into safe mode and disable the 32-bit drivers and you should be good. But unfortunately there's the protection error, so why not? I'm actually going to install it on 86 box. Basically, due to the fact VMware took so long, why not? I just decided to use 86 box. As you can see, it is now nearly finished. It did take some time, I know, because 86 box actually does emulate a real PC. So it of course will be brutally slow, unfortunately, but I'm near finished already. So when I'm actually gonna see you guys soon once I actually get this OS to finish. As you can see, after a few minutes, Windows 98 finally installed. Yes. Yes, as you can see, Windows 98 here. It is a lot different from the Memphis and stuff with the older internet icon, and if you were to go page up, this is what it will look like. Absolutely amazing. Don't show welcome again, and I think this is kind of an obstacle here, but we could go to properties there and actually change the settings here to actually go as high as we want there. We could even do like true color as well. And who knows, laptop display panel. Let me see if it actually works or not. And as you can see, true color is finally installed here. Crazy there. This is actually Internet Explorer 4.0 over here. Very much so. IE4. But luckily, don't need any like VMware tools or anything like this to actually get true color to actually work. It is absolutely amazing. And here's Windows Update, and this does decidedly look like Windows 98, only with a few differences. Like some of the icons are a bit different, but in reality, this is actually control panel here. And if you were to go on the computer, which does have a slightly different icon, it is actually built 1593. So right now I'm actually going to shut down. Unfortunately, there's no sound here, but basically that's about it. I'm actually going to download a newer version of 98, actually built 1658 there, which is even a newer build, but I'm not sure if it actually works or not, because VMware does have an issue with 9X based OSes, unfortunately. So I'm gonna see you guys soon, but first off, let me show you guys the date. This is actually the date I want you guys to set up on BIOS, also in 1997. And once we're finished installing with DOS 6.22 as well as the CD-ROM drive, why not, I'm actually going to go to the D drive, go to the directory, and of course there are a lot of files, I believe, set up here, and this is actually Windows 98 setup here, which is absolutely crazy. This now starts to look really like Windows 98. The previous one is already quite similar, but this is actually even a later build. And the setup starts to look quite similar, but a bit different. And unfortunately, there is actually no sound on this, because it's actually VMware. But I'm actually gonna pause for a bit now. And this is actually the boot up screen, beta 3 here. And I'm not sure how long this would actually take, if it would actually freeze or not. But luckily it does not seem to freeze. And here is where the shell error actually did happen on VMware for some reason. And here we go, guys. We're now in the time section. I'm actually gonna set it to New York time because I'm based in Boston there. And Windows 98 is nearly finished installing. And luckily there's actually no shell error, unlike the previous installation where it did like the real Windows 98, which is actually the second edition. And as you can see, it is now updating system settings. Oh jeez. Actually, the DLL actually did fail there. It's actually the same thing. Basically this. But I actually do have a cure for it. To actually disable the CD-ROM. Oh geez. And of course Windows protection error, so why not? I'm going to use my trusty friend 86box, which has proven to be reliable on these like Windows 9X builds. And basically with true color mode, the setup looks a lot nicer. Yeah, as you can see here, it looks a lot nicer than the previous one. But why not? It is going to be redundant, so why not? I'm actually going to pause. After several minutes, I finally got a build 1658 to actually install on this 86box. Unfortunately, like VMware does not really treat 9X operating systems that well. And as you can see, continuing to load Windows. And of course, because this is actually an upgrade, it does bring in the new true color. And this is actually IE4. It's actually finishing install, and over here is actually the build. And let me show you guys some differences. As you can see, the icons do look a bit different. And this is actually the real Windows 98 that you guys all know. I'm not going to do anything with it. And no. And over here is actually IE4. Unfortunately, the server cannot be established, but I basically upgraded all the way from 3.1, yes, to 98 on this machine over here. This is actually IE4 here, and if you were to go into the programs and stuff, you would see basically the Outlook icon now looks a bit different and now looks much more real. And you can see online services and stuff, startup, and even settings, the control panel, and Windows updates. And this is actually build 1658 here. I'm actually going to download some sound. Unfortunately, could not download any sound, so why not? I'm actually going to shut down the machine. And here it is. It is now safe to turn off the computer, and I'm actually going to go all the way to NT 5.0, which is essentially Windows 2000 beta. However, NT 5.0 build 1691 was first released a year before Windows 98 was first released, actually in 1997, just like these Windows 98 betas. So why not? I'm actually going to virtual machine disk, and I'm going to show you guys what date to insert in the BIOS. Basically, I do think this date over here, which is actually before build 1658. I'm not even joking. Now, ironically, I do think the 1691, this is not really good. And therefore, I actually tried 1671. But unfortunately, there's actually this blue screen. So why not? I'm actually going to try to recreate it via VirtualBox. Why not? So basically, I'm actually going to shut down this and actually head on to VirtualBox. Yes. And basically just create a new virtual machine here. Let's call it Windows NT 5.0. And the ISO image, I actually do have it here. Basically just go on virtual machine disk and go all the way down here. And set the RAM to 128. And of course the disk size, just set it maybe to 2 gigs. And then finish, and then just start. And I do think VirtualBox works much better than VMware for some reason. In some of these older operating systems. And as you can see, oh jeez, what the hell? I don't know what happened. I'm actually gonna turn off the virtual machine and try to restart it. This seems a lot worse than VMware. But before actually downloading, why not? I'm actually going to set the BIOS time to this, which is basically around the same time as build 1593 of Windows 98. I'm not even joking. It's basically just set it up a few months. Okay, and save. I do think that is how to avoid the blue screen of death. But unfortunately, YouTube have this issue again. Well, due to the fact basically everything failed, I did try installing NT 4.0. I basically even tried to create a virtual machine on PCem as well as 86 box, and I did try to create several virtual machines on VMware and VirtualBox. I decided to give up and therefore use my Windows 98 Beta 3. Well, you can actually check the specs of the computer earlier in the video, because I actually installed Nashville and then 98 Beta 1, Beta 2, Beta 3, and so on and so forth. And instead, actually inserted the Windows NT 5.0 1671 ISO into this machine, and therefore you could actually see this there. I'm actually going to attempt to set up, but I'm not sure if it actually works or not. As you can see, setup is inspecting your computer hardware's configuration. So I do think it actually works now. I'm actually going to pause for a bit because this will actually take a while. Oh, it actually worked! Finally! Wow! Which is really good though. I'm gonna see you guys later because this will take a while. After about 5 seconds, it finally converted, and I'm waiting for it to copy files now. And after a few minutes, it actually successfully finished download. Yes, finally. Finally. This has taken several hours. Basically, I did sleep overnight, and I was kind of stressed out because it did take so long. Basically, some of these OSes are quite unreliable, but finally it did download. As you can see, NT5 build 1671. The type of file system is FAT, and it did say, warning, your drive is actually corrupt. So there's actually some error here. But after a while, it would finally start. As you can see, Windows NT setup. This is essentially Windows NT 5.0 Beta 1. And it is quite exciting to actually install this, yes. I thought it would never even work at all, because it did not work in VMware, but luckily it did work here, which is very good news. Next. And please wait while setup prepares your Windows NT directory for installation. Wow, I'm finally so proud of myself for actually successfully installing Windows NT build 1671, which is essentially Beta 1 there. And after about a minute wait, I'm actually going to select really any monitor I don't really know here. Typical. As you can see, I did not grow up in the 90s, so I'm not very familiar with 90s hardware, but I will try my best. At least I know some of the basics of 90s hardware and even certain machines there. And of course, Windows on Windows, yeah. No passwords, and don't create an emergency repair disk. And basically this sort of looks similar to Windows NT compared with Windows 2000. But don't install networking. And finishing setup there. I'm so glad this actually finishes because I thought it would never even finish. And I'm actually going to change my time to New York time. It wouldn't matter anyways. But why not there? True color there. Actually, no. In fact, just 8-bit color is fine. Oh, Jesus. What the hell is this? Yeah. Okay. Select OK. Setup is configuring your computer to NT. And this will take a while, of course. So I'm actually going to pause. And after the while, it would actually show you guys confirm file replace. I'm actually going to hit yes on everything. I'm not really sure what to do anyways. Because this is actually my first time installing this NT beta though. And even my first time even using it there. Even though I did use Whistler and Longhorn because they're much more well known and they have much more reliable installation methods. But as you can see, Windows NT 5.0 nearly finished installing, and I'm actually going to show you guys what it looks like soon there. Setting security on the registry and system files. Setup is configuring your computer to run Windows NT, saving configuration, removing temporary installation files, and restart the computer there. And after restart has completed, you'll be prompted to this blue screen, which is quite common on older Windows NT versions because there's actually no like boot screen. And here you go, yes, Windows NT Beta 5, finally! I actually did something there, which is crazy. And administrator. And voila! Unfortunately, there's actually active desktop, which does not exist in Windows 2000 or even later versions of IE. It's mostly an IE4 thing. And I'm actually going to show you guys a more detailed view later on. And after installing some of the embellishments, including True Color as well as the Sound Blaster, I'm not joking, sound. This actually does have sound as well as higher resolution. Let me show you guys what the startup sound sounds like. Now this is actually not a startup sound you would hear on any version of Windows, only in Windows NT 5.0 beta, yes. And as you guys all know, the Longhorn and Whistler sound that you guys hear is actually a fake startup sound. This, however, is a real startup sound. I'm not even joking. And I do believe this is actually an older version of internet. Here. Basically, this is actually IE4 platform review, even though it has the older internet icon. And this does decidedly look like NT, sort of. Basically, NT 4.0 administrative tools, even though it does say NT 5.0 there. And if you were to go into my computer, it would actually say NT 5. So why not? I'm actually going to shut down the computer and install a later build of Windows NT 5.0, actually NT 5.0 Beta 2 build 1877. And yeah, the shutdown sound does sound like Windows NT 4.0. Unfortunately, despite the fact there is actually a new startup sound. And the shutdown sound you actually hear, I'm not sure if it's actually real or not. I have to really check. But I'm actually going to go on VMware now. Actually download this there. As you can see, NT 5.0, Windows 2000. Unfortunately, there's no CD yet, but I'm actually going to add a CD drive here. Basically, yeah, this. And basically, I'll show you guys the date you should put in. Set it to this date. This build was actually compiled in 1998, so a year after the first beta was released, and basically the same year 98 was released. So let's power on the virtual machine now and go into BIOS quickly. Oh jeez, I just don't have enough time. So See, VMware does not really give you enough time to actually get into BIOS there. And basically just one extra day and go all the way down. And F10 exits. And this is when we finally see the NT 5.0, yes. And oh Jesus, basically this is more VMware's excuses there. So true to the fact VMware actually did show errors. Why not? I'm actually going to try it using 86 box, actually upgrading from the Windows NT Beta 1. And here it is, looking some setup information. Setup is copying files. Now it is actually going to upgrade rather than download a totally new state. But I do think both actually do work. As you can see, I'm actually going to restart the computer now. And this error does persist for some reason, I just don't know. And basically after 2000s, when VMware would become a lot more reliable. Basically Windows Neptune is essentially kind of like Windows 2000, but instead it is actually for home consumers. There is actually no beta version of Odyssey currently in the public. That's rather just like some like project or something. There's actually no physical beta, unfortunately, so I could only download Neptune really. But basically I'm now waiting for this. And this is actually Windows NT 5.0 setup there. It will take a while, but I think this will be a lot more reliable. As you can see, basically it will examine this for a bit as I'm actually upgrading rather than downloading a whole new state. This is now copying files, and I'll see you guys soon. And after this has finally finished installing, it will actually finish in a few seconds. I do believe it will actually restart. As you can see, basically I'll be redirected into the NT 5.0 Beta 2 setup rather than Beta 1. And just enter. Basically this setup actually does look like the Windows XP setup from later on. Basically the beginning phase of the setup, as the blue screen was actually removed, I believe, in Vista though, because in Vista I did not see. As you can see, Windows NT 5.0 Beta 2 starts to look a lot more like Windows 2000 in many ways there. And unfortunately this is actually more of an upgrade, so not every part will be shown, but basically, yeah, you can actually see some of the squares. It kind of reminds me of 2000 and ME rather than Windows NT 4.0, like some older versions of Windows. Yeah, preparing to start Windows NT setup there. And basically I'm just going to select yes on everything there, because why not? And as you can see, it does skip a lot of things still, but this will start to look a lot more similar to Windows 2000. Even the setup actually looks similar to Windows 2000 compared to the old NT 4.0 if you were to watch the last video. But as you can see, installs Windows NT security features and installs and configures devices. This will actually take a while. And eventually after a while, basically around 2 or 3 minutes, this would actually finally complete, and it is now copying files. And soon I'll show you guys some of the changes between NT 5.0 Beta 1 and this NT 5.0, which looks a lot more modern and a lot more like Windows 2000. So let's wait another minute or two. And after about a minute or two, it would actually finally complete. As you can see, configures the computer, saves your configuration, and removes any temporary files used. This will actually take a while, but I'm sure we'll actually complete it. And basically after a while, setup would finally complete, as you can see. And I'm so pumped to actually see NT 5.0 Beta 2 on a virtual machine for the very first time. I'm actually quite pumped now. As you can see, I'm actually going to enter. And here it is. This is actually the startup. It does look slightly different from the Windows 2000 startup, but it looks very, very different from the Windows NT 4.0 startup and NT 5.0 Beta 1. As you can see, this is what the startup looks like. I'm actually going to put on full screen mode here, and yeah, I'm not even joking. This is what the startup screen looks like. I'm actually going to pause for a bit because this will take a while. So basically, I did have to create a new virtual machine altogether, and I actually did set it to 128 megs of RAM as well as 2 gigs of storage, and it actually did work finally. This is actually, I believe, NT 5.0. Yes, it is. And just continue setup, and I agree. And then format it using the NTFS file system. And I do believe this will actually work finally. There. I did try on 86 bucks, but unfortunately the startup did take so long, so therefore this is actually my third attempt of trying to install this. And setup is now copying files. It will do it really fast. And as you can see, it already finished. Yeah, and we're like less than a minute into setup, which is absolutely crazy. Starting Windows NT. As you can see, this is what the boot screen looks like. A lot different from the previous NT as well as NT 5.0 Beta 1. Yes, basically this starts to look more like Windows 2000, but in a different way. And as you can see, it did finally start up. And over here is the setup. Yes, preparing to start NT setup. This with the squares and stuff actually do remind me of 2000 and ME. It now installs Windows NT security features and installs and configured devices. It will install really fast. Yeah, basically this is a clean slate of a virtual machine compared to the other 86 box, which I did start from Windows 3.1. Yes, as you can see, I did install Nashville and then installed a bunch of different operating systems before finally landing in NT 5.0 Beta 1. This will take a while, so I'm gonna pause for a bit. And after a while in the screen, you would actually see this. I'm just gonna set it to Windows and Windows. I don't really care much about the name anyways, and the password. Yeah, as you can see, unfortunately there's only 16 colors on this because for some reason VMware does not really include the best drivers, display, or even sound, and you're required to essentially download VMware tools there. Basically, let's find Indiana. Why not? It's the same as New York time. And this would, of course, take a while. Yes, I know. So I'm gonna pause for a bit. And of course, I'm just gonna select typical setting and work group. Yes, I don't really care. And it's completing installation of fax. Well, I don't have a fax driver, unfortunately. Yeah, basically I'm actually gonna pause because this will take a while. And after several seconds it would actually finish. Yes, basically VMware is incredibly fast compared to the emulators because the emulators actually use the older computer's processor. Yes, as you can see, it shows like Intel Pentium, MMX and stuff, such old processors. And here was where I was stuck in startup at 86 bucks. But I do believe startup will be a lot more successful. As you can see, it is actually successful. And I could actually do something with it. As you can see, wow. Basically, my first successful beta installation of VMware ever since like 95. Build 122. Basically, this build actually failed. This build, well, extremely failed, unfortunately. And the Nashville build actually also failed because of the protection error. These builds all failed because of protection error, and this build, this is quite successful in fact. As you can see, my computer and stuff. And this is actually IE, I believe maybe IE5, yeah. This starts to look a bit more like Windows 2000 sort of, but it still says NT Workstation. And as you can see, here's some apps, And over here is an older version of Windows Media Player. I believe Windows Media Player 6 or something, but I'm not sure. Actually, exactly it is Windows Media Player 6 here. And if you want to go on the computer, this will be the specifications. And I'm actually going to install sound to show you guys what the sound actually looks like. Unfortunately, the Sound Blaster could not install, so I cannot show you guys the startup sound. But I do believe it's quite similar with the NT 5.0. So why not? I'm actually going to walk into Windows ME, yes, build 2394. As you can see, who knows if it could even successfully install. I'm actually going to try. This is not very easy to do, and I might even have to reinstall Nashville to even get this ISO to work. But as you can see, this is actually the virtual machine disk over here. And it will say ME. Shut down this first, and of course power on the virtual machine. And I do believe we do need MS-DOS for some reason. So I'm actually going to install 6.22 as well as the CD-ROM driver. Now that I've actually downloaded MS-DOS 6.22 as well as the CD-ROM driver, let me show you guys the date you should set this to on BIOS. And I'm actually going to exit without saving changes. Why not? It does not really matter anyways. And as you can see, I'm actually going to go into the D drive now to actually set the computer up and go to the directory to see what it is. And this is actually Win98. So why not? Let's go to the CD Win98, which actually takes you into the directory, and then the directory I think maybe setup. And this is Windows Millenium, yes, essentially Windows ME. It was actually compiled in 1999. I'm actually going to show you guys the product key. I do have the beta wiki here, which will show you guys the product key. Oh, Jesus. There's actually a problem with scan drive, so I don't know what to do anyways. But let's try to restart. Why not? Or maybe I'm gonna try my Nashville build, because 86 box tends to be more reliable with some of these like 9X OSes and stuff. Let me try again. Okay guys, after several times installing Windows ME and attempting to install and reinstall, it actually did fail. So why not? I'm actually going to try 86 box, install Windows 3.1 first, and then upgrade to Windows Nashville and then to Windows ME via this disk. As you can see, basically the exact same specs as with the Nashville, but except for 1 gig, there's actually 2 gigs of storage in here. Yes, 2 gigs of storage and the floppy disk. And why not? Let's start. But first off, we do have to set the date. Yes. Go to CMOS and then set to this. Basically, page. That's the date I want you guys to set to, and of course go to F10 and yes, and then go into the floppy existing image, and of course just go on virtual disk, and I'm actually going to download 6.22 now, and I think it will actually work there. Vista did try it for Memphis as well as for Nashville. These OSes seem to be quite horrible, and they don't really have like good installation processes and require several different layers. So why not? I'm actually doing it the easy way. So after spending a few minutes downloading Windows 3.1, MS-DOS 6.22, as well as Windows Nashville, as you can see, this is actually Windows 95 build 999. I'm actually going to continue with my download process, actually installing Windows ME, but for some reason the D drive does not read. Well, it actually reads now. And as you can see, this is actually Windows Millenium here. I did set the date back 25 years ago, yeah, on BIOS, so I think this will be quite stable, but I'm not really sure. But the C drive actually does work now. Yeah, basically installing some of these like older DOS OSes is like so damn complicated. I mean, like the regular OS is quite easy, but the beta is like extremely cumbersome. It takes days to install, and why not? I do have the product key here. As you can see, this is the product key RBDC9 VTR C8 D7972 and J97JY and PRVMG. And basically Windows ME was actually mired with a lot of stability issues, as well as the fact it was actually released close to Windows XP, and Windows XP is just far superior. It uses the newer NT-kernel, and yeah, setup encountered a problem whilst checking the integrity of your registry. I'm actually going to continue setup though, yeah. I don't think it really matters, but let's see what the error will look like. Actually, this is my very first time installing up to this phase, because it actually failed long before this phase, unfortunately though. So I'm actually going to pause for a bit now. And no, I don't want to save system files. And basically the work group, I think it should be Win over here, and set it to the US. I don't need an A drive for any reason. And copying files, this would actually take a while, so I'm actually going to pause for a bit. And basically after several minutes, due to the fact 86box is quite slow because it actually emulates a real processor at the time, I finally reached the stage. Windows Millenium is now setting up your hardware and any plug-and-play devices you might have. And I'm actually going to pause for a bit. And as you can see, this screen would take maybe about a minute or two. And after a while on this screen, as you can see, it seems to be loading a bit more. I'm not sure where to go next, and restart now. Finally, as you can see, this is actually Windows Millenium Beta 1, and this is what the screen looks like. Ironically, it does not look anything like NT 5.0, which is what the Windows ME boot up screen looks like, with all the squares and stuff, kind of like in Windows 2000. As you can see, Windows ME is now setting up your hardware and any plug-and-play devices you might have. It's going to take a while for sure, but I don't know if there's going to be really any errors. As you can see, Windows is now setting up control panel. This will actually take a while. I'm actually going to pause for a bit. And after about several minutes, this would actually finish. As you can see, less than a minute remaining. And I do think by this time, we're actually going to finish setting up for Windows ME. Yes, Windows ME build 2394, which is actually beta 1. And yes, we start now. And we're nearly complete. Yeah, I don't really know if there are going to be any bugs or anything preventing me from starting up, but finally, I've already graduated from MS-DOS and now going to go to Windows NT. Yes, basically Windows Neptune is one of the first Windows NT based OSs for home use. It is actually the very first, and it is a revolutionary mark in Microsoft's history. Because instead of having this login, you actually have a neural login scheme. Woo! Finally! Why does it even have a Windows 3.1 sound? What the hell? Did they literally transfer the 3.1 sound all the way to ME from setup? As you can see, this is what the ME looked like. It did have an issue with the registry, but here it is. Yeah, ironically it still uses the Windows 3.1 sound for some reason. I just don't really understand. Yeah, it is so mind-boggling to see the Windows 3.1 sound. I really don't understand what is here. But let me show you guys the settings here. It is absolutely weird to see the Windows 3.1 sound. I think the 3.1 sound might have carried all the way from the 3.1 setup there. Honestly, it should have like more of a 98 or ME sound rather than a 3.1 sound. Just absolutely hilarious there. I just don't know. But actually, I did finally get it to work, which is a proud moment. But let me address this like registry issue. And in case if I did not download every OS, it is because I'm actually attempting and many of these don't work, like NT 4.0, which I don't really install yet. But you might see in the end of the video if I did install. But as you can see, the properties. Yes, Windows Millenium, yeah. And this is actually IE5 here, I believe so. Yeah, basically this is so weird, yeah. Absolutely weird. To believe this, they are. Basically, as you can see, instead of using the 9X icons, this actually uses the Windows 2000 icons, just like the Windows ME. Actually, IE 5.5, which is quite modern compared to IE 5 or IE 4. But this is so hilarious. I'm actually going to go into sounds. And basically, I should like change to like the Windows log off, but unfortunately there's nothing. This is what the sound should be for the startup. I actually use it for the shutdown anyways, but there you go. It took several hours and several attempts, and basically the system halted, blue screen of death, a hallmark of Windows ME stability. Such ironic, it barely worked. It basically only worked half the time. I'm actually going to delete this OS and never look at it again. It is quite hilarious that I actually technically nearly installed it, but failed spectacularly because of the crashes. Kind of like downloading Windows 95 on VMware. Basically did have to set the protection error, something Windows protection error. So right now I'm actually gonna download Windows Neptune. I just really don't understand what's going on. But I think the ME setup as well as the NT 4.0 might be the most headache setup I'd ever had. Basically, the build 5111 is the only build available to consumers. I'm actually going to restart and quickly hit F2. As you can see, set the date to this. I'm actually going to move my thingy a bit. And actually just go up. I don't really care much there, because it's really only a few days difference. And F10, save, and this is the product key I want you guys to put in. Basically, Windows Neptune marked a revolutionary turning point for Windows. That is because many of the features in Neptune would be in XP soon, and I'll show you guys what I mean. And setup is now starting Neptune, as you can see. And basically the time bomb is more than a year long, which is quite proud, as many like betas have a time bomb of like 180 days, or sometimes more generously 360 days. But basically Neptune is kind of like the home version of Windows NT, whilst like Odyssey is more like the business-oriented version. In reality, Neptune was aimed as a home edition for Windows 2000, I believe, so Windows like the next version after Windows 2000, but then we have Windows ME instead, and so this project actually got cancelled. The Odyssey project also got cancelled, and basically both of these projects actually combined to form Whistler, which is actually the basis of Windows XP. Yeah. Basically, this is actually the alpha version of Windows XP, sort of. But now setup is actually starting Neptune. It will actually take a while. I'm not sure how long. And as you can see, this is actually Windows 2000 Professional, ironically. But I'm actually going to continue and then continue setup. And of course, F8, I actually do agree. And of course, install on the unpartitioned space. Install using the NTFS file system. Yes. For home consumer OS at the time when most people were using MS-DOS. Yeah. And as you can see, fast formatting. Basically, once you know it is Neptune, it is definitely going to be reliable for sure. Compared with the DOS editions where I had to use 86 box. Now I could use VMware straight and basically only have to spend like 20 minutes on each OS. Yeah. As you can see, this is actually the Neptune screen, kind of like Windows 2000 boot up screen. Sort of though, but you would see the login screen is a bit different from Windows 2000, because Windows 2000, 9X, NT 4.0 all use like the classic login screen. You could actually enable the classic login screen in Windows XP as well if you're like a workgroup or domain, but for home users you actually see this new login screen in Neptune as well as in Vista and XP. So I'm actually going to pause because this will take a while. And as you can see, this is actually the Neptune installation screen. I'm actually going to select next. And I do think this is actually the newer Windows logo, but it actually never appeared on Whistler or even XP or any other operating system except this build of Neptune. And as you can see, setup would actually come to this screen. I'm actually going to select next. I'm quite lazy here. I'm actually going to set it to, why not, New York time. Please wait whilst installing networking components. This will take a while for sure. Copying files now, it will take several minutes, but in reality more like several seconds. And as you can see, I think setup has finally finished. And this is actually the boot up screen for Microsoft Neptune here, which is quite crazy because this looks similar to Windows 2000 in many ways. And basically after waiting for startup, this is what is shown in the setup. As you can see, installing devices here, it will take several minutes. And basically I just don't know why I'm being redirected back to this setup again. I really don't understand. And basically now I'm in the final task. I really don't know where I am. Yeah, this is actually my first time attempting to install Neptune. I actually did download like Windows 95 like when it was 10, like back in like 2010 there, when I was really young. And with Virtual PC 2007 it did have sound, but with VMware, like remember the 95 fiasco, I could not even install the Sound Blaster, let alone have sound straight out of the box there, which is insane. But unfortunately VPC 2007 only supports Vista, and hence, therefore, like when I was like young, even though I already had Windows 7 and Windows 8 as my machines, when it was around 10 or 11. In fact, I did have to have a Vista machine. Yeah, I could not use my Windows 8 machine because it only could support Hyper-V or VMware and VirtualBox. And basically it is finished. Whew. I really don't know what's going on. It seems kind of messed up all over the place. But finally. And ironically, instead of having the login screen from like Windows XP, instead Neptune actually starts like this. And luckily sound is pre-installed, just like in Windows 2000 and Windows ME, so I don't really need to install a separate sound blaster, unlike with 9X or NT4. So basically here it is. I'm not sure if I could even download VMware tools to actually enhance this OS a bit, but it does take a while to actually load, and I'll show you guys some new features. In fact, when reading on Wikipedia, I actually did find that there's actually a planned successor of Neptune called Triton, which is actually a minor update. Yes, I'm not even joking. There's actually another OS called Triton, but it is only planned, kind of like Odyssey. In fact, Odyssey was never even compiled. And over here are some of the code names, and it actually refers to the largest moon. Yes, basically Neptune was named after a planet, the 8th planet. Basically, there was a 9th planet actually called Pluto, but in fact, Pluto actually became a dwarf planet sometime. Actually, I'm actually gonna name it maybe Neptune. And of course, as you know, boot times are extremely slow with Neptune and stuff. And basically, yeah, I finally did add in an account. I'm actually going to add in a second account. Why not? To show you guys what the login interface looks like. And over here I did create a new account actually called Triton. I'm not even joking. Basically, as you can see, this is actually the new welcome screen. Windows Neptune also introduced Firewall, yes, a feature we take for granted, as well as the Activity Center, but I could not show you guys the Activity Center. I could actually show you guys this, which is even cooler. I'm actually going to set up internet now. I don't think internet really works. It would not really matter anyways. But I just want to show you guys the version. As you can see, Internet Explorer 5. And my computer basically kind of looks like Windows 2000. But except for some subtle differences, such as the login. Basically, the login is a major change. As you can see, build 5111. Which is the only build of Neptune before Neptune is scrapped. Basically, there were several more builds. I'm not sure how many builds there were before like Neptune was scrapped, but 5111 is the only build which has been compiled and is shown to you guys. And basically this is what the login UI looks like. As you can see, kind of looks like XP though, yeah, and much different from like older operating systems where they of course use the classic, as you can see earlier in the video. I'm actually going to shut down this now. As you can see, this is actually still the classic. I'm actually going to go to sleep. I'm sorry, it's very late. I'm actually maybe going to sleep for about 6-7 hours before I actually wake up and install one of these. Yeah, which is going to be easy peasy. Okay guys, next day it is. I'm sorry it is a bit late. I'm actually quite busy today, and therefore I did not really record that early. In fact, it's now like 9:30 p.m. But here is Windows XP. Yes, Windows XP actually started development as Windows Neptune and Windows Odyssey, but these two OSes actually combined to form Whistler. Yes, as you can see, this is Windows Whistler build 2296, which is essentially beta 1. It was released in the end of 2000. And why not, let's power the virtual machine and set it to BIOS together, yeah. And to BIOS, yeah. As you can see, this is BIOS. I'm actually going to change the date to 10/24. I don't know how it's super slow there. Yeah. don't know how it's super slow for some reason. I can't believe it. F10. As you can see, unfortunately there's no OS yet, but I'm actually going to add an ISO. After adding in an ISO, here is actually the setup. As you can see, Windows Whistler setup. It's actually built to 296. I'm not sure what the product key is, but as you can see, I'm actually looking at this beta archive article, actually beta wiki, to actually see what product key I should put in. And as you can see, setup is now starting Windows Whistler. Yes, essentially Windows XP beta. Okay guys, as you can see, the Windows Whistler setup has hanged in the starting Windows Whistler for maybe about 7 minutes, and I basically had to disable ACPI as well as disable any networking. So therefore it actually did work now. I'm actually going to continue. Unfortunately, setup did not find any hard drive installed on the computer. I'm actually going to figure out what to do next here. It has been several hours. I've been like raging on my computer, basically shouting on my computer because there are really no tips on like 86 box, but I finally got the correct specifications, and I'll show you guys. Socket 7 dual voltage epox P55 Intel Pentium MMX, like basically the same as before, but the display is a bit different. The video card, and there's Voodoo graphics, of course, and sound. Many of these do remain the same, and IDE controller, and I added like 6 gigs of storage, and of course I disabled all floppy drives, but actually enabled the CD drive with channel 01. So yeah, I'm actually gonna hit OK, and if you want, just press delete to enter setup. Set the date to this. And for the BIOS features, actually the boot sequence should go to CD-ROM first, because we're installing Whistler now. And we're not going to save. Okay, and basically I checked, it actually worked. It does say floppy disk failure, but it actually works. As you can see, setup is expecting your computer's hardware configuration. That's good news. Very good news, in fact. Something really proud to talk about here. Unfortunately, it will take a while because it is actually 86 box rather than like VMware, but in reality VMware actually failed for like any Whistler builds, I think before 2410 or something. Basically the Windows 2000 looking Whistler. As you can see, basically set up now, and it finally worked. I'm gonna see you guys soon because this will take a while, and after a few seconds you'll be in the copying files screen. I'm actually gonna pause this because it will take about a minute or two, and after a few minutes, of course, it would actually load and restart. And basically I might put it as is here, as I think I'll be redirected into the Windows Whistler. As you can see, starting Windows, this is actually Windows Whistler. Yes, I'm not joking. This is actually for beta 1. It still uses the Windows 9X logo and stuff instead of the Windows XP logo. And as you can see, yeah, basically this installation kind of reminds me of 98 and ME, if I'm not like mistaken here. As you can see, this is what the 98 setup looks like. It kind of looks a bit similar in some way or another, but in reality the words are exactly the same as in XP, even though the XP setup looks a bit different. And I'm actually gonna wait a bit now. Just hit next. It's actually going to install devices for a bit, which will take a while because this is actually 86 box. And after a while, This screen would show up, which you could actually modify. Basically, I'm just going to put the US. It would not really matter. And the name and organization, I don't think it really matters as well. And passwords. Basically, this is sort of similar to maybe Windows 2000, maybe some bit of XP, sort of. And I'm actually going to put it to like New York time. Because whatever. Actually, Tijuana time is actually Pacific time, like San Francisco and stuff, San Diego, San Jose, Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, and networking components. I don't think it really matters because we're not going to use the internet anyways. And I think like the internet would not really work because it's actually IE5 or IE6 or something. So I don't think they'll work, but I'm actually going to pause for a bit. And after a while, as you can see, the installation would complete. I know it takes a while, but in reality, this is an old processor. It is actually emulating an old processor instead of like the Intel Core i5, so of course it's going to be slow. Installing stop menu items now. Yeah, I'm just going to pause for a bit. And in about 10 minutes or something, setup would finally finish. As you can see, removing any temporary files used, and that is officially near the end of Windows Whistler build 2296 setup. Now it will take a while. This is really slow. In fact, it is actually an older Intel Pentium rather than something like an Intel Pentium 3, which was released in the late 90s, early 2000s. So therefore, it's not going to be really fast compared to if you use a Pentium 3 or something. To just press F1 to continue and ignore anything about the CD. Just leave it as is, and therefore Whistler would start there. This basically looks kind of like Windows 2000 startup. Actually a bit different. This kind of looks more like XP, but before it does kind of remind me of Windows 2000s. Yeah, Windows Vista Professional, yes. Basically, this will be XP Professional. And as you can see, this is actually the welcome screen. Kind of like Windows Neptune, a bit different from Windows XP. I'm actually going to add some embellishments now, including a sound blast and stuff. And you could actually hear, but this is actually a Windows 2000 sound. I think Windows 2000 sound goes all the way to like past Bliss even, and Lunar Theme. Basically build 2465 was the last occurrence of the Windows 2000 sound, like Windows Whistler. I know it takes like forever there, but luckily I do think there's actually like true color in this, as you can see. Rather than in VMware where you actually see like 16 colors, this is actually true color. But unfortunately there's no sounds. But this is actually what the start menu looks like. It starts to look more like XP here, there. And I do believe this is actually the watercolor theme. But it is brutally slow. As you can see, it is different from the classic theme, but also different from like any Windows XP theme there. So right now I'm actually going to configure the VM for a bit. Unfortunately, I could not show you guys sound. I could not get to install sound on this. But as you can see, this build of Whistler does have Media Player 7, which is quite old in today's standards. It also has the professional theme, which I believe is watercolor. And as you can see, this is the new start menu. And this actually runs IE 5.6 there. Not 5.5, but kind of similar to IE6 and IE 5.5 in some ways. And the control panel does look a bit different now. Yes, it starts to look more like XP here. Yeah, basically you could even add user counts. Unfortunately there's no sound, however, but this does start to look like XP. Just create a new account and Whistler, why not? Oh, Jesus. What the hell happened? I don't even know if the keyboard even worked or not. What the hell? On Whistler there. But here is the computer here. Basically this starts to look like XP, and basically the internet, which has a different icon. I don't even think the keyboard actually works, so I can't really show you guys. But just log off, and basically, as you can see, this is what the login screen looks like. Quite different from XP, but this will be inspired in like the home edition as well as the professionals of Windows XP. Basically without a workgroup or domain, and I'm actually going to turn off. And this also sort of looks similar to XP as well. I'm actually going to turn off the virtual machine and go on to build 2428, which is the start of the Lunar theme. Yes, I'm not joking. However, there is no Bliss wallpaper. So basically here it is, 2428. And I'm actually going to use the ISO file, virtual machine disk, and then XP beta 2. And why not, let's power on the virtual machine. I'm actually going to quickly restart and set the date to this. Yes, I'm not joking, 2001. Basically the same year Windows XP is released, and we're now past the 20th century, so past 2000, past the 90s, and all these years we're already in like the 2000s, suddenly in the 21st century. Basically just changed the value a bit, and go up a bit. I don't know how VMware is slow now compared to like before, when it was like extremely fast there. Go all the way down. And F10, exit. And this is the product key we're going to use later on. I'm actually going to see you guys later, because this would actually take a while. Setup is starting Windows Whistler. Actually about 1 second later it finally started. The build before actually didn't work, but as you can see, unpartitioned space, install. Yeah, much better than the previous Whistler, where it did have to use 86 box. Here it could solely rely on VMware. I think after this build, like everything would go quite smoothly there for VMware. I'm actually going to download more ISOs there based on like Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, Windows 10, Windows 11. But like these do take a while to install, so setup is now copying files. And in just a few seconds we'll be ready, because VMware is quite fast there. But that comes at a disadvantage to like some of the older DOS editions, where it does fail. Restart the computer. Like it basically takes like a minute on that screen, and you'll be greeted to a newer setup screen. This setup screen I do believe existed since like 2410 or something. I'm not really sure. Oh jeez. Well, due to the fact this error does persist, I'm now on Microsoft's site. I'm checking to see what I should do. I'm actually going to restart, maybe, who knows. And I actually use the Windows XP CD-ROM, which is essentially Whistler, to actually start the computer. I just don't know what to do anyways there. I just really don't know. I'm just so damn like unclear there. Yeah, maybe I'm just gonna give up. And after a while, like being angry at the computer because I could not really find a way, I ended up using 86 box Basically, instead of like creating a whole new virtual machine, I basically just booted from CD, and over here is Whistler, and it does look like Windows XP. Yes, as you can see, the setup is exactly the same, except it says Beta 2, and there are some minor differences. And as you can see, codename Whistler. Yes, unfortunately, there's no like new Windows logo. There's instead the old Windows 9X logo and Windows 2000 logo. But this will take a while for sure, so I'm just gonna pause for a bit. And after several minutes, this would actually show up. You could actually change the region. I'm actually gonna set it to the US, and as you can see, despite the fact there is actually the new Windows logo, you still see some old Windows 2000 stuff here. So basically, just hit next. Basically, this is more of just a transition there, and of course the product key I'll show you guys. Over here is the product key. Now just hit next, and I'm not gonna care much about the password and the time. Basically, I do know I did not really set the BIOS time to anything else. In fact, it's gonna take a while for network to install, but in the meantime, let me discuss when Windows XP is like essentially like full. Basically, the next build, which is 24.8.1, is essentially the release candidate of Windows XP, and that's when you start to see the more real Windows XP than like this, which is kind of like a hybrid though, with the Windows 2000 startup sound and with some old Windows logos there. Basically, I'm actually gonna pause for a bit. And some fun facts is this is what build 2465 looks like, but I'm not gonna cover it in this video because this video would end up being too long. It is already extremely long, but as you can see, this starts to look more like XP, and basically the taskbar is locked starting with like I think 2433 or something. I'm not too sure, but that's what I heard. And basically, as you can see, instead of showing the old Windows logo from the 90s, this is actually being shown, and it is called Windows XP rather than Whistler, even though it still has the 2000 startup sound. Yeah, for some reason. I'm actually looking at Beta Wiki now. Actually, starting with build 2474 was when the Windows XP sound actually plays rather than like the Windows 2000. And after about 10-20 minutes, of course, setup would finally finish. As you can see, removing any temporary files used, and I do believe Windows Whistler would actually restart after this. Yeah, it did take a long time due to the fact this is actually Whistler rather than like actually 86 box rather than VMware. Yeah, basically that's how long it took. Yeah, absolutely crazy. But ironically, there's actually an error. I don't know what it is. Actually, yeah, it's kind of, I don't even know what to say there. Yeah. But I did have a failed attempt in downloading Windows ME build 2394 early in the video, and I'm not going to press anything. And this is actually what the Windows boot screen looks like. Yes, as you can see, Windows Whistler. It does look slightly different from XP, but basically, as you can see, it's basically booted now. Kind of like in Windows XP, it does have this dialogue here. I'm actually gonna wait for a bit. I just don't know what to expect. But I did download this build, albeit like many years ago, about 10 years ago. It did work on virtual PC, but at the time I was still using Windows Vista because Windows 8, which was my like daily driver for like Windows, as well as my MacBook at the time, they did not support virtual PC, so I did have to use an older PC which actually supports Vista there. As you can see, welcome to like Windows. You could actually see this in like Windows XP there. I don't really care. Unfortunately, there's no sound here. And as you can see, when you click finish, it will show you guys the iconic Windows XP login screen. Yes, the welcome. I'm not even joking. The giant welcome there, yeah. But this will take a while because I think this is really slow now. And after a while, it would of course show the welcome screen, as you can see. Yes. But ironically, this will be the Windows 2000 sound if it were to play. But unfortunately, there's no sound here. I just don't know why, even though I did download a Sound Blaster 16. I might have to re-download a Sound Blaster, but as you can see, this is what the welcome screen looks like. Kind of similar to XP, but there are some changes. Let me show you guys once I'm finally in the screen. And here you go, guys. After a while, build 2428 would actually turn on. And here it is, file bug reports. You could actually file bug report, and here is the recycling bin. Well, unfortunately, things don't really work well, but this is what the build looks like. I know it's extremely slow, but let me wait for a bit. As you can see, things finally work now. And here's actually the recycling bin. As you can see, the icon is a bit different, and even the forward and backwards buttons are kind of different compared with the regular XP. And of course, the taskbar is not being locked. You can actually lock the taskbar, and it still looks different from the regular XP, yeah. And if you want to go to IE, I believe this is actually the icon for IE 5.5 or something, but in reality it's actually IE 5.6 or IE 6 beta. And basically you could actually see like regular icons, Windows XP like icons. But basically here's the control panel. I know it does take a while to actually load, but the user count does look a bit different. And some icons do look a bit different, but this starts to look like Windows XP here. And if you want to go to properties and computer properties, here are actually some things which look 2000. They are. Basically, this does still look like 2000. It still says Windows 2000, not Windows XP, however. But basically, if you want to go to themes, you actually see Whistler style, which is essentially, I believe, Luna. Let me reload the internet again. So this is sort of a primitive version of Windows XP with, of course, a red sand moon theme as a wallpaper. As you can see, IE6 beta. Instead of having the Bliss wallpaper, let's do the red moon wallpaper, which I believe you could actually get with the regular XP. And you can still get a Windows 2000 wallpaper, yeah. Ironically, yeah. And you can actually even get Bliss as well. As you can see, basically this kind of looks like Windows XP a bit. And it still uses, I believe, Media Player like 7 or something. I'm not even sure. But we could actually go to Media Player and then check the About settings. Oh, it actually shows an error. Windows Media Player 8, they are. But the icon still looks like Windows Media Player 7. And there's of course the older version of Windows Movie Maker. And I'm actually going to shut down the basically this looks kind of like Windows XP a bit, but there's some Windows 2000 features. So right now I'm actually going to go to build 2481, which looks a lot more like Windows XP than the previous builds there. actually just go to edit virtual machine settings and basically select the CD drive. I'm sorry if I mispronounce some sentences. Like I've been quite stressed out about the download processes so far because it has been quite slow. And I'm still kind of an amateur YouTuber who's trying to improve. And basically this video is unscripted, unlike some of the vlogs and stuff, and of course some of the reviews there. I'm not sure what date to put in, but let's see with each other. And ironically, this is what this shutdown screen looks like. Yep, Windows 2000, even though this is build 2428, and this is the date I want you guys to put in. Anything is fine, really. F10, save configuration changes and exit now, and of course Windows XP would actually start there. Unfortunately, since these are all beta builds, you do have to change the date on BIOS, unlike with regular versions of Windows with no expiration dates, which means time bomb there. In reality, it actually shows Windows XP rather than Whistler or something. I don't know what happened over there. I really don't know. Yeah, setup is now formatting now. It will actually take a while, but in reality maybe a few seconds or something. As you can see, it's really fast. It's now going to copy files. I don't know if I should even pause it or not, because the download goes quite fast, but let me talk a bit about this build. This build is actually the first build to include the Windows XP startup sounds. I believe it's either this or 2474, but I'm not so sure. But it's either these two builds, and this build is essentially kind of like a complete version of XP with some minor differences. I'm actually going to restart and basically just show you guys what the startup looks like, if it actually will start up anyways. As you can see, Windows XP Professional. Unfortunately, the RTM would not show version 2002, but this basically kind of looks like the RTM and Service Pack 1 startup screen, yes. Because Service Pack 2 and Service Pack 3 essentially removes the Professional and Home Edition. I know this will take a while, but this really looks like Windows XP here, yeah. Compared to like Windows Whistler with the 90s Windows logo, and of course the Beta 1 with like essentially a Windows 9X like setup UI. Basically installing devices now. As you can see, I'm actually going to pause for a bit if that's a choice, but I'm not really sure, because this goes quite fast anyways, so I might not even need to pause. But as you can see, installing devices now. And basically after a few seconds it will show the regional and language options. Just select next. Product key. I'm actually going to copy this, I'm not sure. And why not set it to Massachusetts time, yeah. Installing network now. Just typical settings, why not? And I'm gonna see you guys soon, because I think after this will just be the setup. Essentially kind of like XP, yeah. And after about a minute or two, therefore, Windows XP is finally finished installing, but unfortunately there's this same error which did happen on the previous build. And as you can see, this is Windows XP, the Windows XP Professional rather than Windows Whistler. I think this is also the time when like Whistler stops being mentioned and instead XP stops being mentioned. And basically this same like message did pop up just like on other XP versions, including even Service Pack 3. Unfortunately, I do believe this does have sound because Windows XP does include sound. And rather than having this like Santa looking guy, instead it actually has the question mark, which does look like XP. The sound kind of looks kind of horrible. Yeah, it sounds like Windows XP, yeah, essentially. And it looks like Windows XP as well. With Media Player 8. This is really old. But as you can see, this is actually Media Player for Windows XP. Basically, Media Player 8 is really only available in XP, and I believe this is IE6. It looks really like IE6, but this is actually a beta of IE6, as you can see, Windows XP. And if you were to go on computers, the properties, this would look like Windows XP essentially, instead of like Windows 9X or something, Windows 2000. Computer, basically everything looks kind of like XP, judging from the way it looks there. There's some minor differences, but as you can see, Tor XP.
Welcome to Windows XP from... To begin the tour...
Yeah, I'm actually going to shut down now and go on to Windows Longhorn. As you can see, this is actually the movie maker. Like, this decidedly looks like Windows XP. Except the fact you can't really use it after like 2001 or 2002 or something because of the time bomb. And now let's start with Windows Longhorn. Basically, Windows Vista did start development in 2001. Basically around the time this build was actually compiled, 5 months before the official release of Windows XP to consumers and stuff. But in reality, like Longhorn was supposed to become a stopgap between Whistler and Blackcomb, basically two mountains in Canada. And Longhorn, I believe, is actually a bar in between these two mountains. And basically for Longhorn, it was scheduled to be released around 2003 and 2004, but in reality, like development ended up being messed up and basically everything was scrapped, and therefore the reset actually happened sometime around 2005 with Windows Vista. As you can see, if you were to see in the third build, this is actually Windows Vista, I believe beta 1 or beta 2, somewhere in between. And instead of having Longhorn, which is entirely scrapped, basically some of the features of Longhorn did make it to Vista as like built like I believe somewhere in the 5000s, and afterwards is basically Vista. I'm actually going to show you guys some of the builds of Longhorn and the evolution. Basically the first build is a bit different, but then these are what the next builds look like with the newer background. And if you were to check one of the builds, it is quite odd there. And let me show you. Actually, this build, same build, but actually a totally different UI. It's absolutely crazy. We're actually only going to cover two pre-reset builds, which is named Longhorn here. I'm actually going to put in the CD drive. And I know this video is extremely long and very confusing This is just me attempting to install every single version of Windows, well, every single beta of each Windows OS there. Basically one beta build of each Windows OS at least. I'm actually going to start the virtual machine, quickly enter setup there, and actually set the dates to this. I know! Windows Vista was not even released until about 2006. That's to manufacturing. 2007 is actually the official release year for Vista to consumers. I'm not even joking. But Vista development actually started before I was born there in 2001. So I was basically born like just a few months or after like Vista development actually started there. Shortly after though. So it's not really like too long ago, but I was born around the time these betas were actually released and Windows XP RTM. And as you can see, setup is now starting Windows. You will not see this screen in Windows Vista. As you can see, it says Windows XP Professional. F8, I do agree, and unpartition space, and let's do quick. And setup is now formatting. It will take a while for sure. But I'm not sure what the setup screen would look like. I actually did use the virtual machine, but it's more than 10 years ago, yeah. So it's really long ago since I've last used these, Basically, I don't really have much time, like secondary school and stuff. Of course, AP courses and of course university. It therefore did restrain some of my time away from like some of these hobbies. But as you can see, basically XP Professional, even though this is technically Longhorn. And now, even though like university is kind of out of the way, I still have some projects to do like programming and stuff. Still have like kind of my app gig there. And as you can see, XP Professional. It does say 2003 there, despite the fact this build was released in 2002. And it does not say Longhorn. This setup looks exactly like XP. I'm actually going to skip this whole part there because it's kind of redundant. However, despite the fact setup looks exactly the same, I would want to show you guys the product key. However, I would almost certainly get sued if I were to show the product keys of the real Windows. Well, this is actually on beta wiki, so whatever. And basically, since setup is the exact same as build 2481, therefore, I'm not going to show you guys the setup. It's quite redundant because it's the exact same thing. I don't think it really matters anyways, but I'm just putting something in. And of course, this same beta error does persist. I'm not even joking. But basically after like, I think 2481 is when everything starts to get reliable on VMware. It starts to become more installable because basically the only OSes which are actually installable before 2481 was actually 1.0, 3.0, 3.1, I believe this build of 95, but basically no other, in fact, because essentially everything else failed, as well as Neptune, which actually was one of the only lucky ones to actually succeed installing. And yeah, basically it kind of looks like XP. Service Pack 1, I believe so. Unlike the Service Pack 2 or Service Pack 3, which actually cuts the Professional and instead just has the XP, which is what you typically see in businesses, because many businesses would have already upgraded to Service Pack 3 to actually receive more upgrades there and updates. Like say you could actually install IE8 or even the latest version of Firefox or something if you have like Service Pack 2 or 3 installed there. Basically, Service Pack 1 is quite different from Service Pack 2 in many ways, especially in terms of app compatibility. And now please wait, it will take a while. And basically after a while waiting, this is what the setup looks like. Yeah, basically really like XP. I really could not really tell the difference, but as you can see, it does say Windows codename Longhorn, so it's a bit different. But unfortunately, I do have to set the date to this instead of today's date. And yeah, this is what the theme looks like these days. The blue theme, I believe so. Very different from XP. But as you can see, the display properties, you definitely not see this in like Windows XP at all. In fact, you see the classic display control panel there. But you could actually change the theme here and maybe even the resolution, which is absolutely crazy. But this is what the start menu looks like. Yeah, kind of like Windows XP but with a different skin there. And the control panel here, as well as the computer. Basically sort of looks like XP but sort of looks a bit different. This theme would never be seen in Vista. It is actually IE 6.05, and I believe this is actually media player, is it 8 or 9? I'm not sure. Oh Jesus, what the hell happened? Actually media play 8 there. And the program is not responding, unfortunately. And if you were to go on to my computer, it will actually show Windows XP version 2003 there. I'm not even joking. You could actually still find Longhorn here, but in reality it's mostly just XP, just with a different skin. And I'm actually going to shut down and actually go to Longhorn build 4074, which is going to be a lot different. It is actually released in 2004 there. And I'll show you guys in the BIOS. It is a slightly different theme from this, and it uses a slightly different background as well there. And instead of showing the start in a start button, it is kind of like Vista and more modern Windows OSes, where it just shows the Windows logo. That's about it. So basically, going to the ISO here, virtual machine disk, and Longhorn pre-reset. Remember, this is actually the pre-reset build, and this is actually one of the most famous pre-reset builds, along with 4051. But I don't really have time to download every single build. Basically, set to this there. So basically build 5219 would, I think, maybe still retain the start button because of the post reset. As you can see, it does say Longhorn rather than like XP. Yeah, I'm not even joking. Basically the first build is kind of like primitive, kind of like Windows Whistler build 2202, which still shows the Windows 2000 boot screen there. But as you can see, Windows Longhorn instead of XP here. And instead of actually going into like the blue setup screen, it actually goes straight into setup, kind of like with Vista there. As you can see, kind of like Vista, but I'm actually going to type the product key here. And here's the product key. Yeah, basically this looks very, very different from XP. Basically the setup looks quite weird. I'm actually going to keep it the same, why not? It would not matter. But it also kind of looks like Vista there. Basically the setup screen sort of looks like Vista to some extent. Sort of there. In fact, this is what the Vista setup looks like. And basically after about a minute to Windows Longhorn would actually reboot. Well, this setup screen did exist since about 2003, so I think build 4042 was when this setup screen actually existed. Sorry. Actually nearly knocked my microphone, and as you can see, please wait while setup detects your computer hardware. This could take up to like 10 minutes, but in reality 10 minutes maybe on a Pentium 4 machine. But in reality, I don't know how long this will take, maybe about 1 or 2 minutes. Actually, if you could see, Windows Longhorn did go through several different boot screens. Well, the 4074 happened to be this, but it did go through XP Professional, and then later on it did go to Longhorn before finally going to here. Basically, Longhorn was kind of a mess, according to Theo Joel. Yeah, he did admit it was a mess, but why not? Let's wait for this. I know it does take a while, and after a while, instead of actually booting into the Windows XP create an account screen, it will actually just boot straight in. I just don't know how, but found new hardware. Don't connect to the internet now. Why not? Oh jeez. And basically the internet icon did look kind of weird. You will never see this, but it is actually Internet Explorer 6.05. It looks quite different from Windows XP. And in fact, the recycling bin, as you can see, this is what the logo looks like. Slightly different. But instead of actually getting the new themes, you actually get this there. And of course you do get a sidebar, and this will be quite useful in Windows Vista because you actually add in widgets and stuff. Yeah, widgets, yeah, which is what Vista had but was actually removed in Windows 7. And as you can see, the control panel, basically some things do look quite different from Longhorn compared with XP, including for sure the theme, and of course the Windows Start button, as I told you guys. Yeah, the computer also looked different. Instead of saying my computer, it says computer rather, and the user accounts there. Basically some things do kind of look like XP, and others look kind of a bit different, more like Vista there. And as you can see, this is quite slow, unfortunately. But you do get games, accessories as well, paints there, and Windows Media Player. Unfortunately, I think it might be Media Player 9 or something. Yeah, it's Media Player 9, so it's a bit old, and the internet does not really work, unfortunately. Yeah, even if I were to select any site, and it says 60 days until activation, and if you were to go to the log out, this will be shown. Yeah. Basically, the login screen is a bit different from Windows XP, and here's what shutdown looks like. Yeah, it will take a while, but later on I'll show you guys a post reset build. Yes, a post reset build. 5219 is either beta 1 or beta 2. It actually looks like beta 1, as beta 2 kind of looks like Windows Vista and shutting down Windows services, so a bit different from Windows XP there. But in reality, I'm actually gonna shut down this Longhorn here and actually go on with Vista there. Ironically, the post reset is not even called Longhorn. In fact, it's called Vista there. I'm actually gonna power on the virtual machine and show you guys the dates to put in. Basically, this build was actually released in 2005, yes, a year before Vista was finally released, and it started to decidedly look more like Vista. As you can see, Windows is loading files, and this is actually a newer logo for Longhorn. It is still called Longhorn, I think, until beta 2, when they start calling it Vista entirely. they start dropping Longhorn from the name, kind of like with some of the later builds of XP where they actually did drop Whistler. And basically, yes, this starts to look very much like Vista in terms of the setup, but a bit different in some things. I'm not sure if this product key really works. This is actually for Longhorn Professional, I'm not even joking. Oh, in fact, for Vista, instead of being called Professional, it is actually called Vista Business there. And you have the starter, Home Basic, Home Premium, Professional, Ultimate. I'm actually going to try the Ultimate key. It actually works. Custom here. And actually we install on the drive. It is actually unavailable. The partition you select is not ready for installation. So basically, I do think you have to boot your system into BIOS, then disable secure boot, and make sure SATA mode is set to HCI and CSM is disabled. So why not, I'm actually going to do these. Actually, my fix was that I actually went into BIOS and actually changed the date by 1 month. Yes, basically instead of 8:30, why not change it to something like 9/1 or 9/2 or something, or even 9:30 like I did, and therefore I was able to install. And I'm actually going to pause for several minutes, and after a few minutes it will prompt you to restart over here, and I do believe that's when setup would finally complete, at least for now. I'm not sure what will be next because I've not really tried the build yet, but as you can see, Windows codename Longhorn. Yeah, basically a different boot screen than the one before. Basically, I think this might be the third Windows Longhorn boot screen. Completing installation. Do not restart your computer during this time. As you can see, it's absolutely crazy that this setup kind of looks like Windows Vista and maybe Windows 7. I just don't really know how long it will take for this. Basically, after several minutes, Longhorn has finally completed. Yes. Basically, that screen did take a while. I don't know why. As you can see, Windows Vista Beta 2, despite the fact it does look kind of like Windows Vista Beta 1, and this is actually the startup screen here. IE7 there, I'm not joking. Basically, I'm actually going to show you guys Longhorn, what the boot screen looks like here. Because I actually did miss it, unfortunately, yeah. But you guys have seen this. However, you guys have not yet seen the welcome screen. I'm actually going to show you now. Before I forget, yeah. Yeah, that's the welcome screen. I'm not even joking. And this is what Longhorn 5219 looks like. A bit different from the prior builds, but quite similar to the Beta 1. Basically, you could actually see some evidence of the arrow theme. Yes, I'm not even joking. But instead of having the Vista customization, instead you have more like the XP one there, over here. I'm just gonna say it has been configured, which is quite good, because I could show you guys in a larger format. And basically the start menu still kind of looks like XP a bit, but if you could go on properties, it actually shows Windows Vista Ultimate. Yes, I'm not even joking, Windows Vista, despite the fact it still kind of looks like XP in some way or another. But actually user accounts basically now starts to look like Vista, as well as appearances. Some things do look like XP in one way or another, but in reality, you could start seeing some bit of Vista, such as the arrow theme, yeah. Yeah, there should be system inside, but instead of having system, it only says security here. It actually runs IE7, as you can see, which is actually the version of IE Vista actually comes with. It's still quite laggy, by the way, but as you can see, Internet Explorer 7, Instead of saying Windows Internet Explorer, it still says Microsoft Internet Explorer, despite the fact it's IE7. This is actually Media Player 10. I'm not sure what happened to sound. There is actually no sound, unfortunately, so I cannot really show you guys, but it still has the Windows XP stuff. Windows XP shutdown and Windows XP startup, so unfortunately no Vista yet. I'm not really sure, but as you can see, there's actually a weirder Internet Explorer icon you may never see in the real Golden Master Edition of Windows Vista. But the media player still looks quite similar because Windows Media Player was released in 2004 as version 10. But you could start to see like some bit of Vista influence here. Basically, I'm actually going to shut down. And actually start with Windows 7. Yes, I'm not joking. Windows 7. This, however, does look like Vista. This is actually an earlier build of Windows 7, I believe, like Beta 1 or something. Actually, not even Beta 1, it is actually Milestone 3. And over here is actually the compile date. We'll actually set it to about a month after for safety, because I did fail with the previous Longhorn. You can still theoretically use a month after, it's quite okay. But you probably would not get the full usage out of it there. But I'm actually just going to delete it because I'm not really going to bother using these. And as you can see, Windows is loading files. This is kind of like the Vista setup, sort of. And this was released in 2008, so 1 year after Vista was released in 2007. And if you were to include release to manufacturing, 2 years, because Vista RTM was released in 2006. And basically the boot screen does look quite similar to Windows Vista. And yeah, instead of having like the Windows 7 like setup wallpaper, instead it actually includes black and white. Yes, I'm not even joking. This will take a while for sure, but as you can see, Windows Server 7, what the hell? Why is it Windows Server? What the hell? Windows Server 7, yeah. Really don't understand here. Actually, this is what Windows 7 build 6801 is supposed to look like over here. But basically, this is actually the boot screen here. Yeah. Actually, setup has finally finished, sort of. And setup is now starting services. As you can see, install Windows. It's kind of ironic, I actually installed a server edition. Unknowingly, yeah. But basically complete installation now, which is quite lucky. And I'm actually going to pause for a bit. After it hangs at completing installation for like more than 5 to 10 minutes. Therefore, it is near complete. As you can see, setup is now checking video performance. You'll never see this green bar in Windows 7. Instead, you see another bar, which is a bit different looking. But basically, yeah, finally. I'm now more than an hour into this video, but the user's password must be changed. And ironically, this is actually a server there for some reason. Preparing your desktop now. Yeah, basically it even has a startup sound. But as you can see, this sort of looks similar to like, I believe Vista maybe. As you can see, Windows Server Standard. Ironically, this is actually a server edition. I did not know why I even have the server edition, but basically you can sort of use this kind of like a modern computer rather than some of the other PCs which are basically unusable. IE8 here. I could even try searching the internet to see if it actually works or not. But ironically, it is actually Windows Server. Yeah, I'm not even joking. And the internet does not really work, so why not? I'm actually going to shut down. But this is quite cool to see a server. Well, you could expect Vista to have like something similar, but except maybe the Windows Vista theme, yeah. As you can see, it even has the Windows Vista and Windows 7 startup sound, which is actually the same anyways, yeah. And now I'm actually gonna download build 7000. I might even have to add more RAM, who knows. This build was also released in 2008 as well. But in fact, if this is actually slow, then I might just go to sleep. Yeah, it's quite late now. Basically, you actually see this starting Windows. You actually see it in Windows 7. Instead of the Windows Vista boot screen, it actually shows the Windows 7 boot screen. Yes, Windows 7. And who knows what setup looks like for this build. But let's see. I'm not even sure if I'm able to download Windows 11 beta, if it even exists or not. And this is actually the Windows 7 beta logo. Yep, I'm not even joking. Kind of like the Red Moon Desert for Windows Whistler. I do accept the licensing agreement. I'm basically copying files. Well, I forgot something. BIOS. You could actually even set it to Christmas of 2008. Basically, Windows 7 was released in 2009. And therefore, I'm actually going to retry setup. Oh, jeez. And after viewing this screen, as you can see, you'll be greeted with installing Windows. Now I'm actually going to pause this because this is basically the same for like Windows 7, 8, 8.1, 10 and 11. Therefore, I'm actually going to just skip it all together until the very end. And after restarting Windows 7, I'm actually going to show you guys what it looks like. I'm actually not going to press any key to boot from CD or DVD. Now it's starting Windows. At this point, this now starts to decidedly look like Windows 7, but I'm actually going to show you guys some differences between this build and the actual Windows 7. Actually, this will take a while, but in reality, maybe a few seconds more. So just hang in tight. Setup is now updating registry settings. And of course, setup is now starting services. As you can see, I don't know what happened here, but it's now completed installation. And after a few minutes, you'll be prompted into this screen. Yes, this is actually Windows 7 Ultimate. And I'm actually going to type in the product key now. Actually, I found a quirk where you could actually click next and it still activates. Use recommended settings, why not? Basically New York time and home network here. Basically the setup kind of looks like Windows Vista, Windows 7. But I'm actually going to show you guys that this build is actually a hybrid between Vista and 7. Sort of, yeah. Windows is now finalizing your settings, yeah. Welcome, yeah, preparing your desktop. Basically, this kind of looks like Windows Vista and Windows 7. Anyways, the login. It wouldn't matter anyways. But as you can see, there's actually the bigger taskbar. Yeah, I'm not joking. Just like in Windows 7. And unlike in Windows Vista, it will take a while because it is the first time we log in yeah, basically, yeah, you can actually see this here. And if you were to go to control panel, basically there's still this going on, yeah. And instead of having something like this, it is actually like this. And if you could go here, this is actually a Vista feature. Now you could actually snap just like in Windows 7, which is a cool feature. And as you can see, this is actually Windows 7 Ultimate here. And just going to the computer, it kind of looks like Windows 7 in many ways. There's no more like widgets bar anymore, unlike in Vista. And this is actually IE8 here. And this is actually the recycling bin. And basically here's the personalize here. I'm not sure if you could get the Windows 7 logo. Unfortunately, you can't. This is actually the default background here with the fish. In Windows 8, you actually see something similar with the fish. So right now I'm actually going to shut down. It's quite late now. And this is what the Windows 7 start menu looks like. And Windows Vista. So basically it's sort of like a hybrid. And right now I'm actually going to pause now, because I'm going to sleep. And now is the last part of this video. I'm sorry, I've also been busy today, so I don't really get to make this video as early as possible. But as you can see, this is actually Windows 8 build 7955. Basically, I'm actually going to power on the virtual machine here. I'm actually going to hit BIOS as quickly as I can. And actually set the date to this, yeah. Basically, I do believe Windows 8 development actually started in 2010, but the specific beta was actually released in 2011. So basically, I'm actually going to save here and then quit. Unfortunately, I do need to set compatibility to VMware 9 or something, because I heard this build would not really work on VMware 10 or above. Basically, you could actually set compatibility kind of like in Windows, where there is actually compatibility mode, where you could actually set compatibility to, like, say, Windows 9X or something. And as you can see, this is actually a Windows 7 boot screen. Yes, I'm not joking, despite the fact this is Windows 8. And as you can see, setup is now starting. And I'll show you guys the product key in a sec. As you can see, this is what the product key is. I believe so, but I've not tested yet. And basically, yes, finally, Windows 8 did accept the product key. And of course, custom, unallocated space. I'm actually going to pause this because this is quite redundant. I've done this several times with Windows 7 before. And after about a minute or two, of course, Windows would actually restart. I'm not sure if there's any crash. I've not paid attention. But as you can see, I'm actually going to wait for a bit. Now, due to the fact the Windows 8 beta did crash, I therefore actually restarted. And as you can see, it is now completing installation at the moment. And after a while, setup will continue after restarting your computer. Unfortunately, it has been in the screen for several minutes, so why not? I'm actually going to restart once again. Yeah, I just don't know how. But this is quite similar to Windows 7. However, you could actually install the Metro Unlocker. As you can see, setup is preparing your computer for first use. And yeah. I'm sorry if it's extremely slow, but why not home network? Basically just set it to New York time, and Windows is finalizing your settings even though downloading this is not as a peace of mind as some of the others, it is a lot easier than like downloading older versions of Windows, actually the pre-XP versions, as they require like 86 blocks and a lot of figuring out. For this, however, the only problem is really the freezing aspects, the fact that you have to restart, but that's about it. And the fact that you have to set compatibility to VMware 9.x. And as you can see, it does say preparing your desktop. This will take a while. Now unfortunately, the screen is showing setting up personalized settings for Microsoft Windows for a while, so when I'm actually going to restart, yeah, you see the theme here. Basically you have to restart over and over again, because basically the system actually did freeze, unfortunately. As you can see, yes, finally. This does have Internet Explorer 9, I believe so, based on a browser icon. Takes like forever. Yeah, as you can see, IE9. I'm actually going to close all tabs, and this sort of looks like Windows 7. Actually, a lot like Windows 7, in fact. And why not? Let's install this together. Basically, after a while, this is what the Metro UI looks like of build 7955. Yes, it does look quite different. And of course, the start menu is gone, replaced with the Metro UI. And unfortunately, if you go here, there's basically nothing. But the Metro UI is quite primitive. It does not really look that much like the Windows 8 Metro UI, but as you can see, here's the beginning. Basically the time zone and stuff, ease of access. You can actually do several things with this, but this is quite primitive. You can even access the account from here, and you could actually even log off. And actually, as you can see, this is the login here. Quite different, but why not? Let's shut down. And I'm actually going to sleep now, because it's quite late. Now is the next day, and I'm actually going to download Windows 8 Developer Preview, which is actually build 8.102. So basically, I'm actually going to edit virtual machine settings here, and I'm actually going to find the Developer Preview ISO, and let's get into BIOS and change the date. F2 to enter setup. As you can see, we're going to set it to 2012, because that's when the Developer Preview was actually released. Okay guys, this is the date I want you guys to set to, and save configuration changes and exit now. And soon the boot screen would actually show up. As you can see, loading files. I do think yeah, Windows Developer Preview. So in later iterations it would actually show the Windows logo rather than Windows Developer Preview, but I think there's really no established logo yet for Windows 8 and Windows 10. As you can see, it still shows the Windows 7 logo, English, but instead of showing like any background, it actually shows only blue here. So definitely no wallpaper, unfortunately. And it's now copying Windows files. I'm actually going to see you guys later. Okay guys, and after a while it will prompt you guys to restart. Basically I'm actually going to restart now, and I think setup would go to an end by this point, or would go to completing installation. As you can see, Windows Developer Preview instead of like the new Windows logo, which is used in Windows 8, Windows 8.1 and Windows 10. And as you can see, setup is now updating registry settings. I'm not sure if I would even be able to download Windows 11 beta if that even exists, because Windows 11 was only like announced like a few months, basically around 3 months before Windows 11 is like released to the general public. I'm not even joking. As you can see, getting devices ready. This will take a while, but maybe I'll see a newer login UI. Basically, instead of downloading like the EAEP or something, I'm sorry, EEAP, which actually still shows the Windows 7 UI, I actually like uninstalled that ISO and actually reinstalled another ISO, which is based on the Redfout UI. As you can see, Redpew UI, which does include the Windows 8 UI. As you can see, basically with the Metro UI and stuff, rather than the Windows 7 appearance. So basically here it is. It'll take a while for sure, and I'm actually going to pause for a bit. And after a few seconds, you could actually personalize the PC. So I'm actually going to use Express settings. Why not? Actually log on. So yeah, I'm like kind of lazy in terms of naming any of these machines anyways. They are. And as you can see, welcome. Luckily there's no activation key needed in this like build, which is quite lucky. But you can find many of these on archive.com just like I did. And here it is. This is actually the developer preview, which still has the stop button. Yeah, as you guys all know, Windows 8 did remove the stop button, but Windows 8.1 actually revitalized the stop button, and Windows 10 actually revised the stop menu even further by actually removing the like start screen there. Yeah, remember, and actually replaced it with instead of stop menu, but it actually also has tiles as well. And basically it's preparing a PC now. It will take a while, but this install has been quite reliable so far and quite fast compared to the Windows 8 7955, which unfortunately like did crash quite often and required restart. But that's kind of a lesser hassle than having to use 86 box or like something like that. It still uses the Windows 7 setup wallpaper as the wallpaper, and it still has, I believe, the Windows 7 recycling bin. But in reality, the Windows Vista recycle bin icon has been carried all the way to Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. And if you were to go to the top right, you can't really get to anywhere, unlike in the regular Windows 8. That's because you actually do have a stop button, and this is kind of like the introduction to the Metro UI. Yeah, and the store icon is a bit different. Yeah, basically you could actually load Internet Explorer here. I don't know if things actually work or not, but as you can see, this is actually the control panel. You could actually see sort of the theme here for like Windows 8, even if it's less usable. And basically this is the desktop. Oh jeez. I don't know how to even log out. Okay guys, as you can see, it did take a while, but you could actually go into settings here and of course shut down. This is quite cool. It actually does have the Windows 7 shutdown sound, and soon the startup and shutdown sound would actually go away. Basically this is build 8250 there, yeah, which is actually the consumer preview, which is actually released even later in its lifespan. So why not, I'm actually going to power on the virtual machine and show you guys what BIOS date to actually put in. So F2 to enter setup, and as you can see, the system date. Actually, my bad, I actually show you guys the BIOS date for the consumer preview, which should have been for the consumer preview rather than the developer preview, so why not put the same date as the developer preview. And over here is the product key. Now you can actually find all of these on archive.org. And yeah, 8102 actually came out in 2011. And after changing the BIOS date, I'm actually going to modify the BIOS date. I'm actually going to put in some watermark, like during the timestamp, to actually remind you guys to set it to 8/30/2011 rather than in 2012. And this is actually the Windows 8 boot screen. Yes, I'm not joking, there's actually a fish rather than the Windows logo. And yeah, you do get the newer Windows logo now. I'm actually going to install now. Setup is now starting. This will actually take a while. I'm actually going to pause for a bit to show you guys the product key one more time. Hit next, and of course install. As you can see, accept the license terms and custom. I'm actually going to install now. I'm going to see you guys later. And after about a minute or two, setup will prompt you guys to restart, and I'm actually going to restart now. And I do believe this will go straight into the personalized, just like in the previous Windows 8 build. Yeah, there's actually the fish. Windows 7 beta also has the fish as well. As you can see, just earlier in the video, setup is now updating registry settings. This will actually take a while, and it's now preparing. So basically, I think this will take another minute getting devices ready, and soon it would actually prompt you guys into the personalized settings. Yes, not even joking. Which is kind of like near the end of the setup, which I could show you guys the UI. And actually, Windows 8, like consumer preview, actually does have this fish as the default wallpaper, unlike the flower. I'm actually going to pause this for a bit. And actually, after about a minute, it will prompt you guys into this page, which is the personalized page. Express settings, and I'm not going to use an email address. Here I'm going to just use the local account and username. And finish, yeah. Basically finalizing your settings. And instead of actually showing the finishing slideshow like in Windows 8 or Windows 10, instead it just goes straight into login, kind of like Windows 8 build 8102. As you can see, preparing Windows now. And basically I'm gonna see you guys later to download the last 3 operating systems. Yeah. And I'm going to attempt to download Windows 11 to see if it's even possible to get a beta build of Windows 11, which is before the release. It's now preparing Windows now, which does take a while. And of course, here it is, the desktop here. Unfortunately, there's no more start button, but as you can see, there are many things kind of like Windows 8. Including this start screen here. And actually things do work. And the store icon is a bit different, yeah. But the Windows 8 store icon would be a lot different from this. And I do believe this is IE 10 consumer preview, yeah. And over here is the famous fish here. And of course, you could actually change the background, but unfortunately you cannot find the default Windows 8 background anyways. So I'm actually going to shut down the machine. And actually see you guys soon for the last 3 OSes. Now I just got home, and here are the last 3 operating systems I'm going to cover in this video. Windows 8.1, Windows 10 and Windows 11. Why not? I'm actually going to start with Windows 8.1 build 9431. And let's start the virtual machine. and basically jump into BIOS, because this is the date I want you guys to set to. Basically, as you guys know, Windows 8 did start development in 2010, with 2011 being the developer preview phase and 2012 being the release year. Well, Windows 8.1 was actually released in 2013 to actually address some of the issues in Windows 8, such as the lack of a start button, as well as to improve the Metro UI. So basically, I'm actually going to hit F10 and actually exit. And basically, as you can see, I do believe this would actually load. Well, there is actually another fish, yes, instead of the Windows 8 logo, despite the fact this actually was released after Windows 8. I'm not even joking. But this slightly predates the Windows 8.1 by a few months, I believe 4 or 5 months or something. And as you can see, Windows 8, I'm actually going to install now. And as you can see, setup is now starting. Basically, Windows 8.1 is quite similar to Windows 8 in many ways. It is sort of a hybrid between Service Pack as well as a full-blown OS. It did not really change so much to be considered a full OS upgrade, but it changed more than many Service Pack upgrades, yeah. And as you can see, copying Windows files now. This is going to be quite fast. I'm going to see you guys later. And after about a minute, of course, Windows would actually restart. As you can see, with the new fish, actually the 8.1 fish, I'm not even joking. And basically, I do believe I'm actually going to be redirected into the login in a moment, basically to create an account. And here you go. As you can see, I'm actually going to create my account now, which is quite crazy. Basically, downloading all of these newer operating systems is a lot more reliable on VMware, and it typically takes like 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes. But in reality, it is much easier and much less of a hassle than that of older operating systems. Using Express settings now. Next, we'll set up your account. Basically, oh jeez. Local account, yeah. And as you can see, finalizing your settings over here, and sometime the setup would actually pop up. Yes, here it is. Basically, this does not appear on Windows 8 Beta, but it actually did appear on the Windows 8 RTM. And this is essentially the beta for Windows 8.1, which I believe is quite a minor upgrade from Windows 8, maybe with a few tweaks. Basically, like Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 kind of feels like Windows 98 versus 98 SE, like several different OSR versions of Windows 95 with some minor upgrades. But in reality, installing apps now, I'm actually going to pause for a bit. And basically, after a few minutes, of course, Windows would actually boot into the start screen over here. As you can see, this is actually the desktop wallpaper, and this looks strikingly similar to Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 in many ways. As you can see, with many of the same touches. And if you want to go into this PC, as you can see, it is still quite similar in many ways. And just going into Internet Explorer, I do believe this is actually Internet Explorer 10 or 11 or something. It is actually Windows Internet Explorer 11 preview. Basically, in the personalize, you could actually change the background, but unfortunately there's no default wallpaper for Windows 8.1, as you can see in here. Basically, this is actually the start screen here. It kind of looks like Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, not much difference. And here you go. Basically, I'm actually going to shut down the computer and actually download Windows 10 build 9841. Now, I actually did use this as a teen. Basically in 2014, I actually did install a beta of Windows 10 just before Windows 10 was released. Actually several months. And because I actually used a Windows 10 with a different UI than the RTM version Windows 10. Therefore, I wanted to show you guys this build 9.8.1, which I do believe is similar to the Windows 10 I actually used in 2014 before Windows 10 was released in 2015. And due to this, therefore, I do want to try, and here it is, Windows 10. Yes. And I also did manage to find an ISO of Windows 11 build 21380. I'm not even joking, because all the builds are actually 22,000, which is actually the RTM build of Windows 11, and therefore there's not much of the beta builds. But as you can see, here's some of my CDs. I'm actually going to choose 9841, and fortunately this is actually debombed, so I don't need to go into BIOS in this at all. In fact, I could just run straight into Windows 10. As you can see, this is built 9841 without the fish logo, but instead it has the Windows logo. Yes, just like every other version of Windows. And over here, I'm actually going to select English and install for sure. Setup is now starting over here. And basically, it will take a while. Now, I do suspect there's actually no Windows 9, probably due to the fact Windows 9X, is probably the reason why. But let me show you guys what the product key is. I do believe this is actually the product key, and let's hit next. Unfortunately, it is of a different version of Windows 10 build 9.8.1, so I try another key. Instead, I'm actually trying this key. It actually also doesn't work. Why not this key, which is actually Windows 10 Core? Oh, Jesus. Unfortunately, you have to reinstall, but why not? I'm actually going to skip the activation, if it even works at all. Wow, it actually did work. So basically next, well, I'm actually going to delete all these virtual machines anyways. This is just more of an experiment. In fact, I didn't really install anything, because basically VMware tools would actually fail on some of the older OSes, and VMware sometimes does not even work. But I'm actually going to pause for 1 minute. And after a while, setup would actually complete. I'm actually going to restart and then pause the video for a bit, because this is quite redundant. Actually also did skip the product key, as Windows 10 did remind me to activate. I'm actually going to use Express settings for this one, why not? And actually I'm going to create a new account, or actually try a local account rather, because I really don't want to like use my account on these betas. Basically sorry. These are just more for experimental purposes, and I don't want to leave my account or even have any personal data on these virtual machines at all. As you can see, this is actually the screen here, the Windows 10 screen. I'm actually going to pause this because it will take a while. But about 10 seconds later, as you can see, this is actually Windows 10 here. Yes, this is actually the Windows 10 I did use as a teen back in 2014. And this is what the start menu looks like. Quite different from the Windows 10 one. In fact, this is what Windows 10 would have looked like in its RTM form, as well as some of the later builds. But as you can see, this is just a beta and kind of an intro to what it would look like. And of course, there is actually Internet Explorer rather than Edge. Actually, this is IE 11 because there's no IE 12. And if you were to go to the top right, you wouldn't see anything. In fact, that is already removed, and instead it is actually replaced with a start menu, kind of like in prior versions of Windows rather than the big start screen. Basically, this is the Windows Store here, and of course over here are games, and you can get pictures and documents and stuff. So quite similar to like Windows 8 and Windows 10, but with some minor differences basically. As you can see, especially the start menu looks quite different. And of course, the taskbar also looks very different. More similar to 8.1 than Windows 10, but why not? I'm actually going to shut down. And here's the finale, Windows 11. Unfortunately, the ISO is still downloading, so I do have to wait a while. Basically, it's an extra hour before I could show you guys. And finally, after I downloaded the Windows 11 build 21380 ISO, here is the very final video. Yes, final video. I'm actually going to edit virtual machine settings and actually add in a CD. Yes, an ISO, and this is the ISO here. And now let's power on the virtual machine. And first off, you have to hit F2 and basically try to find the date there. I'm not even sure because this is actually a different BIOS UI than the previous one. So basically, let me retry again. Jeez. Oh, come on. EFI network not found. I'm not sure what happened here, but let me figure out for a bit. Basically, rather than having like BIOS, instead VMware actually boots it in UEFI mode instead. So basically you do have a different boot screen for VMware. Basically, as you can see, I could not change the firmware type to BIOS. Instead, UEFI is basically the only method I could actually choose here. Now, due to the fact I could not actually change the firmware type to BIOS, and basically the not found EFI, I really couldn't even find any sources to actually fix the error. Why not? I'm actually going to try using VirtualBox. Yes, basically this is actually Windows 11 here, as you can see. And basically there were mouse problems with some of the prior versions of Windows. Luckily with Windows 11 there was no mouse issue, and I'm actually going to type the product key. Who knows if I can actually skip the product key. I'm just gonna say I don't have a product key, and why not Windows 11 Pro there, why not. And I do accept to the licensing terms of agreement, and of course install on drive 0 unallocated space. Luckily this does not need like the TPM module or really anything. In fact, VirtualBox actually detected it as Windows 10. And ironically, this actually has 2 gigs of RAM, as you can see, even though Windows 11 requires 4 gigs. So why not, I'm actually going to pause for a bit. And after about 2 minutes, setup would prompt you guys to restart, so why not, let's restart now. Unfortunately, I could not really find a way to actually enter BIOS mode on VirtualBox. As you can see, VirtualBox is quite hard to enter BIOS mode really, even compared to VMware, which is already hard because it boots really fast compared with the normal PC. And yeah, you do get the Windows 10 logo over here. And this will take a while for sure, but I'm actually going to pause for a bit. Basically, after several minutes, because VirtualBox is quite slow relative to VMware, I'm finally in the setup screen for Windows 11. As you can see, this is actually to create an account. And yes, I'm actually going to hit yes if it didn't work. Oh my goodness, it's now been frozen. Now, due to the fact VirtualBox is extremely slow, Windows 11 essentially crashed. Therefore, I'm actually going to retry VMware and download it as Windows 10. As you can see, the system date, I'm actually going to set it to 2021. Yes, 6 years after Windows 10. I'm not even joking. Basically, even a larger age gap than XP and Vista. And see if this actually works or not. As you can see, this is actually Windows 11 here, build 21380, which does start to work now because it is not in UEFI mode. It is instead in BIOS mode. And basically, as you can see, it actually does work. Here, setup is now starting. So I'm actually going to pause this. And after a few minutes of installing, because Windows 11 does take a while to install, I finally downloaded Windows 11, and as you can see, it is a lot faster on VMware. Like VirtualBox, it is essentially unusable because it has 2 gigs of RAM, and here I did add 4 gigs of RAM. Basically, I'm gonna skip adding keyboard layouts, but this is a lot more usable than in VirtualBox. Yeah, 2 gigs of RAM is essentially like unusable. You couldn't really do anything. It's not checking for updates, but in reality I'm not going to update. And yeah, the setup is quite similar to Windows 11 basically. And I'm just going to wait for a bit. I'm going to set it up for personal use, and basically they'll prompt me for an account. In reality I cannot have an account here. Basically I have to like disable everything here. So basically just type this command in, but unfortunately it is not recognized. Sorry, this command is more correct. It is actually going to restart, unfortunately, which would actually take a while. I don't really know how long. But as you can see, it is actually restarting now. And later we're going to type this command. slmgr dot REARM. So basically go to Shift F10 again to enter the command prompt. And as you can see, this is the Windows 11 sound. Sorry, my bad. ipconfig release. That is the correct command. And as you can see, for some reason they do show the current date, which means this build would have likely expired. I don't have internet. Basically continue with limited setup. And basically with this you definitely would not need a password. And just accept. And just a moment here. Basically this is the Windows 11 setup over here. I'm sorry if things are a bit complicated. I'm sorry if I gave you guys the wrong commands. I'm actually going to edit it out from the video and put a disclaimer here. But I'm actually going to pause this for a bit. Okay guys, after a while Windows 11 beta would actually start. As you can see, this is build 21380. And Windows 11 did remind me that the build actually expired. And basically, as you can see, this is actually the default Windows 11 wallpaper. Instead, the Windows 10 wallpaper is actually used as the default wallpaper for Windows 11. And as you can see, I could not change the background. That's because Windows 11 is not activated, and unfortunately it actually expired. As you can see, the date is well past the expiration date by like 2.5 years essentially. And this is what the start menu looks like in the real Windows 11. This is what the start menu looks like. Kind of similar, except maybe the search is a bit different. And as you can see, the taskbar is actually white here rather than some sort of light blue or something. But there are basically a lot of similarities between this and the regular Windows 11, the non-beta. Even many of the folders are quite similar as well over here. I'm not going to show you mine because it does have personal information, but you could see the theme here. It's quite similar to the consumer version of Windows 11. So right now I'm actually going to shut down. And thank you guys for watching. Please give a big thumbs up, subscribe for more videos. And yeah, that's basically it. I'm gonna see you guys soon. Thank you guys.